Thank you for your patience, everybody. See you in a moment. Hello, everybody. Hope you find yourselves doing well. Just as a reminder before we get started, this channel is for educational purposes only, or perhaps entertainment purposes only, whichever the eyes of the law prefer. So, I want to welcome you all. It's good to see you. And hope you're all doing well out there. So, got a really interesting case up ahead. Bear with me one moment here. I'm kind of losing some things. Okay, so we are going to be going over, hello again, welcome. We're going to be going over the near-death experience of Wayne. And no, it's not Wayne Bush, our good friend, which I wanted to remind everybody that Wayne Bush does have a YouTube channel now. And they are doing a great job over there. Julie's there. I love Julie. She's a sweetheart. And they're both doing a Soul Trap channel called Sovereign Spirits. So that's Sovereign Spirits. I'll be sure to drop that link in the chat, and maybe one of the mods could do that if they have the opportunity. That would be great. Okay, so we're going to be going over Wayne Morrison's near-death experience. And it's a doozy. Happened when he was 17 years old in 1972. And let me just get rid of this music. And so some of the things that stand out, I have a quote here. Quote, "At this point, it was communicated to me, and I don't know if it was communicated by this being I mentioned or if it was communicated by the other beings, but somehow I understood that I had a mission. And I guess I would say an important mission that I had to return for." Another standout moment that we'll see is hundreds of thousands of light beings floated around him and created music that is impossible to describe, and it, referring to the music, was all in support of him to return. How about that one, huh? We've seen charades like this before. Personally, I kind of in my gut think that this is about the ego, right? It's about building an individual up to get them to consent and agree and end up back here. But again, the really where the problem comes in is the interaction from the very beginning before he's even at that point, right? That's why non-interference, shielding ourselves is really like the so important, if not the most important thing when we're on our way out. He did do something very extreme right when he came back, and he wanted to go back where he came from, which he is referring to as home, just like many others. And during that action, a deep resonant voice said no. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that viewer discretion is advised on that, specifically that point that I'm talking about. Thank you, True Detective. I appreciate that. And so, yeah, so just if you're a little squeamish or something, just letting you know in advance that most of the NDE, you know, it's no big deal, but there is that one point which is pretty wild, and yeah, you'll get to it. We'll get to it. So, anyways, let's dive right into this experience case. No, it's not working. Hello, everybody. Thought I had the camera on before. I guess I didn't. So let's get rolling. Again, this is Wayne Morrison's near-death experience. Happened in 1972 at the age of 17 years old. Oh. I just got to fast forward. There's a little music there.
It was in 19...
So if you could start on the day it happened and fill us in.
Okay, the day it happened, it was in 1972. I was 17 years old, and I had gone to a party, and I'd been taking medication. I can't really recall back then what I had. I might have had a cold or something, but there was drinks being passed around, and these were guys who were older than me. They were Navy guys. So I was 17. They were probably in their early 20s. I didn't really know them that well, but like those things went in that day, somebody invited you, you went. And so I started drinking and relaxing. And at some point, and it's never been clear to me, and I've always been honest about this, I don't really know what happened. At one point, I was drinking and I was feeling a little odd. And at the very next point, I was in a totally different place. And I would just like to start by talking about this place as a very definite place, not some sort of hallucinogenic or vague sort of place. It was a real place. And I was moving through this dark, what I guess I would call a tunnel, but I wonder if I've added that word over the years because it's been used so much. But it did feel like that. I felt like I was moving very swiftly, but not that I consciously looked for my hands or arms, but I don't remember feeling like I was a body, and yet I did feel like I was clearly a presence. I felt all there, but I could not have moved at the rate it felt like I was moving at in a human body, at least the way I remember it. And as I was moving, there was this dark rumbling sound that seemed to be so deep it vibrated within my body and all around me. And when I describe that, it sounds like...
Now, see, one thing I wanted to point out, and of course, you know, it still has a lot of NDE characteristics, but as you listen, especially that part, you get the kind of inkling that we could be dealing with an out-of-body experience here, that, you know, maybe he OD'd too. I mean, a crossover between the two or something like that, because, you know, we see how a lot of the out-of-body experiences, regardless of the type, will have similar features, and they can have a tunnel and a love and light experience and God, creator, source experience, or deceased loved ones, on and on and on. So just keep that in mind. Doesn't take away from the experience, but interesting nonetheless.
And as I was moving, there was this dark rumbling sound that seemed to be so deep it vibrated within my body and all around me. And when I describe that, it sounds like it would be terrifying, but it was really the opposite of terrifying. It was pretty calming. And I started moving forward faster. And as I did, I came into this, well, I take that back. Up ahead, I could see a light at the end of this black tunnel. And as I approached the light...
Notice what he says. He says, as I approached the light. He approached it. So he's going down the tunnel and doing it on his own.
I was looking down on fields of flowers and just a beautiful scene, like like you couldn't really create even in a movie. And
so even, you know, you have the flowers, the, you know, whatever, the grass, the rolling hills, or the water, all telltale signs of other things we've seen in NDEs. Especially like in Europe, the nature settings are very, very prominent, but they're also in the States too, and other areas of the world. So interesting that he's seeing it by looking down, I guess you can say, outside of the tunnel. So be interested to hear your thoughts on that one. It's interesting to hear it from the perspective that he's going through the tunnel, or I guess, it's tough to say if he's actually in the light yet, but he's looking down and seeing a nature depiction of nature.
I take that back. Up ahead, I could see a light at the end of this black tunnel. And as I approached the light, I was looking down on fields of flowers and
so still in the tunnel.
Just a beautiful scene, like I like you couldn't really create even in a movie. And these flowers some of them were really huge. I don't really know how big, but they appeared could be 50 feet or they could be 30 feet big.
Now, what's interesting when I hear this, I don't know if any of you happen to remember this case. It was with a child. Dr. Melvin Morse, I believe, interviewed him. And it was, I want to say that the child was maybe 6, 7, around there, maybe even younger. Anyways, he talked about how, this is going to just be a brief moment. I'm not going to go off too much, but he talked about how he basically took a wrong turn. Like, one area was meant for humans and one was meant for animals and nature beings. And he ended up going into the nature beings realm, I guess you can say. And he talked about big flowers. I think he actually fell into one, and like a big bumblebee or honeybee or something like that. So it's interesting to hear him saying, oh, these flowers had to be 50 feet, because the child was saying the same thing. And that, that's an older case. I want to say that was maybe filmed in the early 2000s or late 90s, but don't quote me on that. I'll try and dig that one up for you for anyone interested in checking it out. It's on childhood NDEs with Dr. Melvin Morse.
And they were all making music, or at least I feel like the music came from them, but the music was saturating the air, and it was inside of me as well as inside of them. And somehow we were communicating. And by that, I don't mean specifics. I wasn't asking questions, but it felt like those flowers were actually there to support me, literally. And as I moved forward, there appeared these presences of light, and they had a vague shape of bodies, but they weren't clearly defined. I could not see their features. And when I got to them, they made it clear to me that I was going to meet a being of a high order. Yeah. Now, the reason I phrase it that way is maybe I need to give a little background. I was raised non-religiously, which wasn't not anti-religiously. I just wasn't raised in a religion. And at that point in my life, I was probably agnostic or atheistic. I probably didn't believe in God. Well, I'm pretty sure I didn't believe in God. But they told me I was meeting this being of a high order, and this being came forward from way off in the distance. It was a little tiny speck of light, and it got brighter and brighter until it was hovering. Well, I feel like it was hovering, or he was hovering. It felt like a male presence. And again, not clearly defined, but a brilliant light. And as he came near me, it wrapped me in this sort of warmth and comfort and acceptance, which is really hard to explain here on Earth.
Okay, so really, it's the same old thing, wrap me, acceptance and this and that and love. It's the same old song and dance. This is the indoctrination period, I can say, or the street hustler drug dealer that's giving out free samples to hook the children or the adults. It's just it's dirty. It really is. I mean, you could see how easy the manipulation can be in a moment like this, and we hear it over and over and over again. It's a consistent pattern of this love bomb acceptance, this, perception of God, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, source, creator, whatever you want to call it.
But it was like unconditional acceptance, unconditional love. That's the only way I can put it. No questions asked. There were no qualifiers. It was simply acceptance. And I could feel this joy within me. And I could also feel the joy within him. And he was, the best way I could describe it is being a father. If you had a little baby and the baby was maybe trying to learn to walk and fell down a little and started laughing. This is how this presence treated me, like I was like a baby, really. He found a lot of humor in my excitement and my questions, and the questions came really rapidly. And the questions had to do with various things. One of them was, I remember this because for some reason as a kid I was captivated by UFOs. And I wanted to know if there were other civilizations in the universe. And there, you don't need to ask the question. You simply need to start thinking about it, and it's answered. And it's answered in a multitude of ways. In this case.
Now, see, again, we have him asking. He has curiosity, interest, and something exterior to himself is going to transmit that information. So there is a certain specific narrative that is being conveyed to him. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. This makes sense, on and on. Well, it's all about keeping you contained within the illusion and thinking that you are not a powerful creator being capable of making sovereign decisions. Instead, it's like, oh, let me ask, Grandpappy God or Grandpappy Jesus for the answer because it's just little old me. I'm nothing. I mean, that. It's like we are treated equivalent to a baby. It's as if you're still here on Earth. Oh, Mommy, Daddy, what's the meaning of life? Blah, 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 blah. No different. No different. It's the same thing. So the question has to arise is, well, what if you don't interact with all that? What if you decide to say, hey, I'm not going to be mixing myself up in any of this. And I'm going to go my own way, do my own thing. What would happen? What would happen? And I think the answer is the most empowering truth of our existence is that we can reclaim our true essence 100% and never look back and never have to worry about dealing with this place or its other realms or anything to do with it ever again. But it is up to us as individuals to stop the cycle of reincarnation, to stop the cycle of believing in the illusion that this reality and all the realms linked to it portray, because it's one big fat hoax. And, those who are new or otherwise on the fence, I promise you, if you just stick around and then, of course, do your own research, everybody's got to do their own research, you will come out the other end. It might take a year or so, but you'll come out having this sense, well, not the sense, this strong inner knowing about who and what you are, and that you control your path. You control your destiny, nothing else.
Case, I was transported, I don't know how far, I just really, really far, and instantly. And it's hard to describe time and space there because it's not like here, I'll skip trying to explain it. But I was looking down at civilizations, various civilizations, and some appeared to me like they were almost like in Roman garb, and others appeared to be what my mind at that time conceived of as more modern.
Okay, so again, one of the big things we talk about on this channel is the Greco-Roman feel, the Greco-Roman architecture, the Greco-Roman vibe that is consistent and appearing in experiencer cases. Life between lives, pre-birth memories, past life regressions, near-death experiences, breakthrough trip reports, out-of-body experiences, even after-death communication, all sorts of it's just very consistent. And it's something I like to kind of compare to the continuity of familiarity. So if you're familiar with what's going on here in this realm, then it makes sense that the system would have it set up where you are familiar with things on the other side, right? Whether when you pass or if you have an out-of-body experience, whatever the case may be, it's something familiar to you, so you don't panic. You don't get all worked up and say, oh, where am I? What am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, okay. This looks familiar. So it provides comfort, provides familiarity so that you can continue to be pulled along by this system. But once you crack open the BS, it's very easy to see why all this is occurring.
Like they were almost like in Roman garb, and others appeared to be what my mind at that time conceived of as more modern. And I did all this from above, almost like looking down. Well, it was looking down. My presence was looking down at it, but I didn't get down on the street. I didn't meet beings or anything like that. I was just observing this. And then when I came back, I had a very important question I wanted to ask. And I need to back up here. When I was moving through the black tunnel, I had this thought in my mind, and it just overrode everything. It was, I am going to learn the secret meaning of life. It was just like a repetitive mantra. Not that I would have even known what a mantra was back then, but that's how I would see it now. And as I looked at this being, I said, what is the meaning of life? And the being instantly put inside me somehow that it was love. And again, I never heard the word love. It wasn't Love. It was this sort of deep, comprehensive understanding that I remember, but I could never duplicate here. And I remember being so excited that my soul, my spirit, was doing like somersaults in the air. And I remember him laughing, chuckling. He just thought it was really funny. I don't know, but in a good-natured way. He wasn't laughing at me. He was laughing with me. He was feeling my joy. And
he was laughing at you. I hate to say it, but he's like, we got another one here. We got him.
I was feeling that connection to him. And then at some point, we move into a black expanse. And when I say we, I feel like these guides, I can't remember if this presence
I wonder if the Matrix thinks that's, if God Source Creator thinks that's racist.
And then at some point, we move into a black expanse. And when I say we, I feel like these guides, I can't remember if this presence this presence I never named because I always was rigid about not coloring what happened to me and being totally honest, including the fact that I wasn't going to mislead anyone and say I was pronounced dead. I wasn't. What happened, happened. And we moved into a black expanse, and I was allowed to ask a series of questions. And in front of me, I saw the world appear, like on an ultra. Well, it was like the world. I don't know if you could describe it as a video screen. Video screens didn't really even exist. It was 1972. But I saw the world just rapidly, and by I say rapidly, I mean almost instantaneously go through metamorphosis and from really nothing to growth and humans and a lot of violence. I saw armies clashing with each other. And again,
okay, so something he's going to bring up here is something I've talked about regularly on this channel. And so just listen to what he's about to say, my friends.
Humans and a lot of violence. I saw armies clashing with each other. And again, this is from a far, far distance. It's not up close. And I somehow was able to absorb all this information. I understood what it all meant and that it was connected to me and that I was connected to it, and we were all interrelated. Again, it's not something I could ever explain to anybody here. It's hard enough for me to try to come to grips with what happened to me. So I understood things I could never understand here is all I'm trying to say. And at some point, the message was delivered to me that I was going to return to Earth.
Oh,
I don't remember how that message was delivered, but I remember fighting it. And
I'd be fighting it too. But as far as maybe he brings it up in a minute, but or I might have gone over my head. But anyways, he talks about how there's nothing changes, right? Well, how there's always been these wars and horrible atrocities going on in its history. And so the question is if this God, source, creator, whoever is all it's cracked up to be, then why does it allow this to happen? And even furthermore, how does humanity not get its crap together by now and figure out a way for peaceful existence without parasitical interference? How come that is something that is never achieved? Why? And that's because everything is running as it's supposed to run. And there's a few more things we could talk about that, but I don't want to drone on too much. But I think it's quite obvious that everything runs the way it's supposed to run because there are certain bloodlines, families, whatever the case may be, NPC, parasitic controllers in the so-called flesh, helping run this joint in unison with the astral realm, with we can even call part of it a simulation computer, simulation AI construct, something like that, so that everything runs the way it's supposed to for maximum output of Lucian creative energy, so that can be extracted and used for however they use it.
I don't know if I threw a fit. I remember I was just not willing to do it. I knew where I wanted to be and I was going to stay there. And
you could just look at his face. Look. I mean, this is a great example of the equivalent of someone thinking they got kicked out of heaven. It's the same type of feeling. And wait till you see what happens when he comes back.
Wanted to be, and I was going to stay there. And so
poor guy.
At that point, it was communicated to me, and I don't know if it was communicated by this being I mentioned or if it was communicated by the other beings, but somehow I understood that I had a mission. And I guess I would say
somehow I understood I had a mission. But
somehow I understood that I had a mission. And I guess I would say an important mission that I had to return for.
An important mission.
And I was paying attention. And all these beings, and then some, like, I don't know if it was hundreds or thousands of light beings. They all had light. And they all seemed to float up around me. And they created music that is impossible for me to describe here. There's nothing I could describe it like. It resonated. It was in harmony with itself, but it was also somehow spontaneous. It wasn't You could tell it wasn't a rehearsed thing. It wasn't like a classical piece of music or any of that. It was as if they were creating this sound, and it was all in support of me to return.
It was all in support of me to return. I mean, come on. This is so blatant. It's so blatant. They have the hundreds of thousands of light beings singing in unison, in perfect harmony, however you want to frame it, all for him to return. This is something, we've seen other examples that, are in line with this. We've seen singing, but another, like a big one we see is how they walk into something equivalent to like an arena or a stadium, and they're all cheering for the being. Oh yeah, you did it. Yeah. And then, well, lo and behold, they end up coming back here. It's all about stroking that ego. You've got to get back down there. You got a mission to fulfill. Stop dilly-dallying around here. It's time to get back. We're gonna massage your ego, make you feel super special, and boom, you end up coming back here. I mean, come on. It's the same type of thing. It just, if it's not stroking the ego through big crowds that are all there for you and for to make you feel special, then it's something like, oh, guilt tripping you for your children or your parents or your pet or something like that that's back down on earth that desperately needs you to be there. It's always the same type of thing. And it makes you wonder what happens here if someone stands up for themselves. I think, first off, it's very difficult for someone to stand up for themselves there because they're in the crux of this amazing love and light experience that cannot be compared to what's going on here. So yeah, they almost all, I mean, I would love to get a firm number on this because I'm telling you, it's got to be in the 90 percentile bracket range, something like that, right? Where they always say two things. Near-death experiencers say, I didn't want to come back. And pre-birth experiencers say they didn't want to come here. Over and over and over and over again. So really, again, ask yourself, why is that the case? Why are they not allowed to come? Why are they not allowed to stay there? First off, because there's a predetermined death date, I think, for every single one of us, just like there's a predetermined birth date for all of us. And because they're so, remember, they're not in their body. Think about the NDEers who have horrible car wrecks or are victims of abuse or something like that. I mean, we've seen some horror shows on this channel. And we've seen ones where they're not as bad, but you have everything, all types of experiences going on and traumas. So seriously, like if you're disconnected from the body, being love bombed, you don't have that pain, that suffering, all that. It's a little bit easier to see how you can come back here because you have that disconnect. And it also goes to how we keep coming back here, how we keep experiencing this. When you have that disconnection from the body, and of course, the difference in, for let's just say time, whatever that is, and however that's applied over on the other side. And then, of course, you have the memory wipe. And we clearly see open admissions that Wayne fell victim to the memory wipe. And we're going to hear a lot more about that. And if you don't have a memory, if you're free of the human body from trauma and suffering and all that, and you think you're dealing with God and getting love bombed and et cetera, then again, it's very easy to see how individuals end up coming back here. It's like boom, 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 all a regimented plan or program, I should say, that plays itself out, and they end up back here in one way, shape, or form because of how intense and amazing that connection is that they had during their experience. That's why they don't want to go. They don't want to come back because they want to stay in that amazing, loving embrace and all that stuff. They think they're at home, but the Matrix ain't going to let that happen.
Which, I mean, I was 17. Even now, I just go, what? But that's what happened. And
A little synchronicity.
from there, I woke up. Well, I don't know if the word is woke up.
Okay, so this is the trigger warning, the viewer discretion advised warning. So if squeamish or have difficulty with certain things, this would be the time to stop the video and then come back in a couple minutes.
Simply looked around, and I was standing in a bathroom of this apartment that I don't think I'd ever been in before in my life. And I had a razor blade. I found a razor blade. And I was determined to slash my wrist. And I always want everyone to really listen to this part, because I was not in despair. It was the opposite. I was filled with joy. And I wanted to go back from where I came. Now, how and why I knew that was the answer, I can't say. I have no reason to. I don't remember anyone ever saying to me, you're dead, or you passed out, or anything like that. I just had that experience. But somehow I knew that if I slashed my wrist and died, I could return there. And this is the only.
Somehow I knew if I did this, I could return there. See, this is how difficult it is for him when he gets back here. It goes to this extreme because he wants to be back, quote unquote, home. And I'm telling you, the light is not our home. There aren't many things I say with like being definitive, but the light, all that stuff related to it, because it's linked to this Matrix and everything, and all the horrible atrocities linked to on the light's watch, on so-called God or source creator's watch, all the things that are allowed to occur is enough to know that that's no place that I want to be. I don't care how it advertises itself. I want nothing to do with it because it's part of this. It's part of this monstrosity of an experience we call Earth and the human experience.
Mystical, what I would cast as mystical thing that happened after this was a deep, resonant voice said, no. And as he did, someone opened the bathroom door and I dropped the razor blade, and the guy said, hey guys, he's in here. And that was the end of it. That ended right there. From there, I'm 17, and I was, had a lot of, I had, like a lot of 17-year-olds, I had my issues, there were a lot of things going wrong. And everything seemed to go right at that point. And in retrospect, was it because of that? I don't know. I just know that at that point, I told my girlfriend at the time, she was younger than me by a year or so. And I told her what had happened, and she accepted it because she knew I wasn't a lunatic, and she knew I wasn't using heroin and doing these kind of things, And she accepted it, but it was 1972, and I had zero context, nothing. Maybe there were books out there, I don't know, but I had no reference to this at all. And so I ended up, my girlfriend and she got pregnant, we got married, I went in the Air Force. And after just about 8 years in the Air Force, I left the Air Force and I became a police officer in Newport, Rhode Island, and ultimately spent 30 years there and retired as the captain of detectives. And in between there's a whole life, because I had 2 daughters, 5 grandchildren, 6 now. I have a great grandchild. I can't even, wow. Well, you can see how young I was when I got married. I have a great grandchild, 5 grandchildren, 2 daughters, and we traveled. We went to Colorado, we went to the Philippines, we went to upstate New York, and then I got out of the Air Force. And when I got out of the Air Force, I returned to something I had done as a youth, which was to play music. And I began to play music in bands and duos, mostly folk music, Irish music, bluegrass music, that sort of music. But I played a lot of different music. And so we traveled with the music a little bit. My wife became a director of tourism in Newport, and so we traveled with her. So we had very active lives. We traveled a lot. We were very fortunate in the jobs we got. We were very, what I would now call blessed. I wouldn't have used that word then, but looking back, I could see somebody was watching.
Blessed. Be less. Be less. Blessed.
Over me.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but kind of like my gut's telling me, due to how elevated the situation was with him, that the Matrix gave him a little bit of an easier life script. Now, personally, I don't think becoming a police officer is easier life script, but the music part of things and doing what he enjoys and being able to get out there, and then of course actively spreading the word of the Matrix marketing department, unbeknownst to him, this is an asset of the system that continues to perpetuate it and make sure that, hey, don't go figuring out who and what you are. Don't go figuring out that you can use your intention and deny to interact with all this stuff. No. Keep the narrative running so that the Matrix keeps running.
I could see it. And then that pretty much, I'm sorry, I left out a piece I have to say. So it's 1972. I have no context. We go in the Air Force. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I'm in our living room watching TV. And there's a daytime TV show, which I think it was Merv Griffin. That was a thing back then. And he introduces a doctor named Raymond Moody. And I go, okay, so what's this? And this doctor says, well, I've written this book, Life After Life. I go, I'm listening. And all of a sudden, he starts to tell these accounts. And I go, what? And I jump up off this couch, and I said to my wife, this is it. This is what happened. These things. This is what happened to me. And I could tell. I mean, they were so clearly the tunnel, the presence, what a lot of people refer to as telepathy. Because I'm talking a little out of order here, but when you're there and you want to know something, like, let's say I wanted to know who Heather was. It wouldn't be like it was described, well, Heather was this girl who grew up here and did this. You would sort of become Heather, and you would be Heather. You might even be Heather's mother or father or sister or brother. There were a myriad of ways that you could experience and did experience answers. There wasn't this thing we do here, which is to use symbols to describe a symbol, and hope that somebody understands what you're saying. So over the years, what happened with me was, since I had professional career, I was always leery, outside of my family and friends, to discuss what had happened to me. With my family and friends, I always did.
Now, before he kind of goes on, I don't want to forget about this. You know how many NDEers, especially those who had their experience like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and they talk about how they just randomly one night, hear Dr. Moody on TV, the godfather of NDE research, amazing. A lot of books out there. Has dedicated his life to the topic, pretty much. But, they just so happen to run across his work on TV, or they happen to run across his book in the bookstore, or a friend just happens to mention, oh, you got to read this book, blah, blah, blah. It happens all the time, especially to those who had an experience before the internet. So something to think about. And then, well, lo and behold, what's happening? We're hearing more and more about their stories, and, the experiencers prop up the Matrix because they don't know any better. And again, if I forgot to say this earlier, but as with any experience or case I go over, it's nothing personal. Wayne, if you do happen to ever listen to this, I just have an alternate view as to what's going on here versus the standard narrative that's put out there that everything is advertised, and there can't possibly be a deception involved, where I think it's pretty clear when you look at the collective of the data. So anyways, again, nothing personal, Wayne, if you do happen to ever run across this video, and you're always welcome to come on and for an interview if you'd like and have a discussion.
So over the years, what happened with me was, since I had professional career, I was always leery outside of my family and friends to discuss what had happened to me. With my family and friends, I always did. But at some point, for some reason, I made a video in my bedroom. I think I was a lieutenant at the time. And I just felt, my daughter asked me, she said, why would you do this? It seems the opposite of how you would be. And I said, I have no answer. I don't know why I made that video and said what happened and put it out there just on my own on a YouTube channel. And then I guess over the years, a couple different places picked up on it and said, would you be interviewed? And so I agreed, because I began to change my mind about how I should treat this. I guess in the beginning, there's a song that was a hit by Peter Gabriel called Salisbury Hill back in, I'm going to say either the 90s or early 2000s. And there's a line in there that resonated with me, which was, to keep in silence, I resigned. My friends would think I was a nut. Turning water into wine, open doors would soon be shut. And that's sort of how I saw it. I can't really discuss this with people because they'll think I'm crazy. I didn't think I was crazy, but.
And I saw that video probably, I'm going to say 10 years ago, maybe it was 5.
Wow.
But I didn't think you were crazy. There's so many of us that really enjoy these stories. Yeah.
And so what's happened to me now, I'm in my 60s, and I've changed. A lot has changed. I've come, my wife used to say, well, you're on this level or you're on that level. And I would resist her. I would say, no, that's not true, because I think there was a false arrogance in me that didn't want to say, well, I'm here and you're there or whatever. But we were having this discussion not long ago, and I said, I agree with you, but I'd like to call it a plane. I think we're all on different planes is how I've come to see it. So in our existences, I've come to accept that there are people who totally understand what happened to me and can totally relate to it. And there are people who never will. And it's not my mission, this is how I've come to accept it, to try to change their minds. And I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to start Jonestown or something. All I can tell them is what happened to me. And for a kid who was an atheist, agnostic, it changed my life. And it changed my life for me in very gradual steps. Like, I didn't run out the door and say, hallelujah, I'm born again. It wasn't that. It just kept increasing over the years, this presence of understanding, what I would call understanding, that this life is transitory, and I'm not saying unimportant, it's probably very, very important. And I've got my own theories about it now, and I'm free to discuss those. In the beginning, I just always wanted to relate exactly what happened. But now I feel more free to, talk about it from how I feel about it.
Well, I think there are so many people out there that need to hear it, because whether they're hurting because they lost someone or they're afraid of what's coming down the line for them. So let's talk about some of those theories coming up. I want to focus first, though. You mentioned the light And the way you described it, I was curious, was that important being the light, or did he come out of the light?
That's a great question. That important being, I think, was the light. I've never thought about it, but I think as I think back on it, that light was so distant, but so clear. And as it came here, it enveloped me. But it could have been the other one too. It could have been, and I just was.
See, yeah, it makes sense, because there always seems to be this one being that is a representative of the light. Not always, but a lot, right? And of course, you could have the deceased family members hanging out at the tunnel right before someone crosses over the light, or the deceased family, friends, pets could be there at the light, and maybe there's something representing itself as God, source, creator, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, on and on and on. So it's like this is a being in and to itself, right? But I think what we're dealing with, and this is, of course, I have no proof of this, but this is just kind of my gut feeling on this, is that we're dealing with a AI type computer system, and there are entities that run it in the background, right? And that's just kind of my gut on it. I don't, don't pretend to know it for certain, but at the same time, I don't believe that who experiences or think they're dealing with is in fact who and what they claim to be. All right, that much I'm pretty confident on. I just don't feel that all these beings are just ready, waiting to boom, 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 execute plans and make sure that everything is proper and customized for that individual immediately. And they will, no, there is something running in the background that is aiding this system from being exposed. And that's because the experiencers have a customized experience. So all the top leading researchers out there agree in unison across the board that a near-death experience is customized to the individual. So why is that? Why is everything customized to the individual? Because it makes it easier to deceive them. It makes it easier for that individual to not ask big questions, to be stuck within the illusion.
I was ignorant of that. I may not have realized the light is so much more vast than what I saw, but this was an incredible light and it's not like, it's hard to describe this light, because this light was a warmth. It was palpable. It wasn't just physical. It wasn't like we turn on a light bulb. You know what I mean? It was a presence, this light.
And who do you think that light was?
I now believe it was Jesus. I did not believe that then.
Dun, dun,
I
dun.
believed it was God or possibly Jesus. But the reason I say this is Jesus and I have had a tug of war for 60 odd years on my part, because I've always resisted this earth mind, always resisted. Well, there's no proof, there's no evidence. But at some point here in the last few years, I've come to accept it was Jesus. And I really don't care if it was Jesus. It doesn't really matter to me, because I know Jesus wouldn't care. Jesus doesn't care about that stuff. Or let's not even call him Jesus. Let's call him anything. Let's just call it the presence. The presence only cares, I think, that you understand and move forward in this life to the best of your capabilities. And it's not for me to judge where people are at. That was an awakening for me, because I always said, this person, when I was young, I would look around, I go, why don't people feel what I feel? How come they don't understand the things I understand all the time? And now I kind of get it. They just simply don't. Or they understand a lot more than I do. There's that too. If I now can listen to somebody like, you may be familiar with this person, Eckhart Tolle.
Sure.
I listened to him the other day and I go, this guy gets a lot of things, you know, and he probably got them way before I'm starting to get them.
Okay, so really something to, when you hear that, Eckhart, right? The near-death experiencer who comes back, they are almost always going to have a streamlined life into the new age of some kind, right? The whole love and light narrative, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So there's a whole industry ready and waiting for experiencers when they come back. Eckhart is one of those individuals who is part of the new age, you know, let's just say the deception, right? Anyways, the reason why I'm saying that is because it makes it a lot easier for certain things to occur. Certain narratives to be spun, certain indoctrination to be received and spread by experiencers from experiencers because of an entire industry that is wrapped around them. Now, the people who really get the short end of the stick are those who have the hellish-like experiences. And, you know, my heart goes out to them. Imagine having a hellish experience, negative experience, or feeling like you got kicked out of heaven or this or that. That's, we saw him kind of get a little teary-eyed earlier, which, you know, while he was talking was equivalent to being kicked out of heaven. So much so that, you know, as soon as he got back, he was, you know, working on taking his own life. But those who have the hellish-like experiences, they really get screwed because there's not much out there for them. They're obviously less reluctant to share their experience, although there are, you know, a number that do, and they are, you know, able to be found. But the whole thing is just so perfect. It's so perfect because it sets up an entire narrative that A, is a religion, the New Age religion, and B, it props up the matrix and has this confirmation bias, cognitive dissonance, boom, 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 going on and on and on and on. And it just keeps spitting out the same information, the same narratives, to the point where many believe it, regardless of whether you had an experience or not. So unindoctrinating yourself from that isn't all that easy. And just imagine being an experiencer on top of all that. Just imagine. It's like, oh, well, confirmation. And it just keeps going and going and going. I mean, it's amazing how easy it is for experiencers to just fall right into this, among many others. So, anyways, hope you get what I'm saying.
So in a lot of ways for me, I feel like I'm just being born. I know that sounds odd in the physical stage here, but I feel like a lot of epiphanies and revelations are coming to me on a daily basis now. And I'm so much better at, not cured from, not judging people. So I that was something, you know, I was taught to judge. You know, that's how I grew up. I think that's how most of us grew up. We had to use our judgment, but then at some point it can become a dangerous thing because you can start labeling people, and you do. And I had a talk with the NDE interviewer, Lee Whitting, and I was talking about prejudices, you know, and I think a lot of people in America at this time would say, oh, you mean like white against black? Yeah, I do, but I mean a whole bunch of other things. I mean white against Asian, I mean man against woman, I mean, and we got into this conversation, society against police, and probably reverse too, police against society.
Here we go.
There are so many prejudices that color our thoughts. And when I was 18 years old and went into the Air Force, they made me a police officer against my will. I mean, I think I said this to Lee. I said, short of President of the United States, that was the last job I could ever accepted that somebody would put me in. But it happened, which in hindsight is sort of an interesting karmic development, I think. Because I grew up very, I don't want to get into politics, but let's just say I grew up in an environment in which I distrusted and disliked the police intensely. And when I became one and I started seeing that the majority of the men and women were good, decent people who cared about people, it changed my life, because I didn't get that from a distance. Because I only understood what many of us understand if we don't, what's the Indian saying, walk a mile in my moccasins? You know, I had never walked in the role of a police officer, and I ended up doing that, and it changed my life for the better in many ways. And there were rough spots too. It's hard being a police officer because enormous pressures are put on you, you know, in a moment, and you have to make big decisions. I was lucky enough that I was in Rhode Island. I mean, I look at the people in Chicago, New York, you know, the big cities, and I can't fathom how they would deal with the multitude of daily problems. And I talked to a guy who used to be in Delaware, and at that time they were the second leading homicide city. I'm trying to remember the city. It's a big one. And he said, I pull up and there would be 5 or 6 dead bodies. And I said, you know, I've seen dead bodies. I was a cop, but you know, not 5 or 6 in a murder scene. I can't even comprehend that, to be quite honest.
Well, I think that's with so many things, that when you're looking from the outside, you have not always the same perception when you're in it, and you can see it very, very differently. And I heard you say something which relates to this, and you have a phrase about how also when people talk, how we can misinterpret, or we usually do misinterpret what people say. Do you remember that phrase?
Yes. Are you referring to, I said that, I tell my family this all the time, that I don't think anybody very often understands anything that somebody is saying to them. Is that the one you mean?
That's exactly what I mean. I see that all the time.
Yes.
Our communication, sometimes we think we're being clear and then we're not.
Yes.
And I've even noticed that in recording myself with these podcasts, is you say one thing and you think in your brain it's coming out a certain way, but then when you hear it back, you're like, oh, that wasn't exactly, that didn't come out like I meant it to come out. And
Lee said to me, Lee Whitting, he said, Dr. Raymond Moody, who he personally knows, the guy I talked about writing the book Life After Life, he said, Raymond said to me, we need to invent a language because English, I would say any language in the world, is insufficient. And I said to Lee, I go, it's been invented. It's there though. You just got to be able to access it. And at least in my life, the only way I've accessed it is in that moment in time and space where I went there, which presumably
access. I mean, like when I say exact, I mean access to our essence, our true selves, not the matrix self, not the matrix propaganda. Thank you, double A, for your very kind super chat. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Always so generous and kind. Thank you.
Where I went there, which presumably I will go to again, or some form of. I don't fear death anymore. I did fear death up to that point, by the way. As a young kid, if the thought of death came into my mind, it terrified me. And I do know people like that, and older. And the only thing I can tell them is they can take my word for it or not. It's okay. I'm not personally offended, but there is no death. We're part of a great creation. All these, and there is no death. We're going to go on and on. How? I'm not sure. I don't pretend to have that answer. But we're going to go on and on. And
we're going to go on and on. All right. We're going to go on and on the hell out of here and never look back.
I've come to the realization this is a belief. This isn't something that I was told, or if I was told, I don't remember that I was told, but I believe when I look at the ancient stories of the fall from grace or Satan and those things, I've come to formulate the idea that we were with God, and we are with God. We're not disconnected. We just are in a dream that likes to believe we're disconnected.
Well, yeah. Well, we're disconnected because of the horrible design of the human meat suit. But we're disconnected from our true essence, not a God source creator outside of ourselves. It's about us. It's about us reclaiming ourselves once and for all. And again, never looking back. That's what it's all about. This system has perpetuated the same thing over and over again. Look outside of yourself to something else to solve your problems. Don't look within. Don't find yourself. No, look outside yourself, that, in conjunction with what the Matrix provides you, aka God, source, creator, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, soul groups, on and on and on. The council of elders, teachers, on and on. It just never stops. It's always looking outside, never looking in, never get to the point of realizing who and what you are, because once you do, the gig is up.
I think we sort of said, and again, this is just a theory I have, hey, God, we got this great idea. We're going to go off and do our own thing. And if you don't mind, we're just going to take a break from you. And God, because he loved us so much, let us do it.
Come on.
But probably whispered to somebody, hey, I'm not going to really let them go off on their own because this will not end well. And so I believe that the original mission of coming to Earth, this Earth, and I don't know how many others there are, but this Earth was to prove God doesn't exist. I believe that's why we came here, to prove God doesn't exist.
And
oh God, it's just difficult. If we have nothing to prove to anybody but ourselves, we have to just go within and do us, do you, from a sovereign and liberated and non-interference perspective. Nothing more, nothing less, and just see what happens. I don't pretend to have all the answers. All I'm saying is, take back control of you. Don't rely on something exterior to yourself, because you don't know what this thing is. We all don't know what it is. We've been memory wiped. We don't know where we came from, why we are here, where we are going. Well, we have an idea where we're going. Sovereignty and Liberation Highway, baby. Anyways, it's just, but without the realization of what's going on here and the big hoax that is reincarnation and the soul trap in general, without that, this system has everyone on lock. Very simple to do. It runs its little program, customizes all sorts of things so you feel like it's legit, and then boom, stabs you in the back. You end up getting reincarnated and rinse and repeat, or you end up going to other realms, or you're still hanging around and stuck in the astral realms that it's created. But as long as you aren't leaving the system, as long as you aren't finding out who and what you are, it's just going to be the same thing over and over again. So even those who are new or on the fence, just remember, it can't hurt trying what we talk about here, and that's non-interference, also known as shielding, sovereignty, liberation, creating your own realm that is impenetrable and incapable of being influenced by anything or infiltrated by anything outside of it. And just doing what you need to do to refamiliarize yourself with you. That's it. That's it. And if the light and God and Jesus and the creator and the soul group and all this stuff is just, everything's all it's cracked up to be, well, nothing's going to prevent you from going back there. Remember, if everything is love and light and, and there's no judgment, then you clearly don't need to worry about making a bad decision. If you did create your own realm, if you did take the route of sovereignty, liberation, non-interference, none of that's going to matter. If you made that decision and it wasn't the correct decision, it's not going to be a big deal. They'll understand. They don't judge. See? It's not going to matter. But if you just go along for the ride, on the other hand, that's where things get dicey. If you don't take control of yourself, if you don't go your own way, do your own thing, reclaim your true essence, and at least test it out, then the only other option is that you're going to be still stuck in the wheel of samsara. You're going to be stuck in this overall matrix system. The solution's simple, my friends. And testing it out is not going to hurt anyone. It's just not. But, when we really boil down everything and look at it with a common sense perspective, it does seem like a big fat deception. So take back you. Take back you.
Why would we do that?
Because I think this was the free will part where we wanted to go off on our own and just have our own existence and prove maybe, I don't know, we wanted to prove we didn't need God. I'm not sure. I'm speculating. But
It's funny when he says we need to prove we didn't need God. Prove we didn't what? Need ourselves. We're our own creator being, right? I mean, there is, at least for me, when I look at it with this lens, that, I could see myself being a dumbass and wanting to explore this place, wanting to experience this whole thing, and then getting wrapped up in it because of curiosity, because I like to experience and ask questions and do different things. So to me, when I look at myself personally, I could see how something like this would be appealing. Oh, I'm an eternal creator being, and I have the chance to go to this realm and experience, birth and death and memory wipes and get lost and not remember who I am. I can see myself being stupid enough to agree to that. I can. It's just it's when you kind of look at it through that lens, it makes a little more sense. Why wouldn't we as eternal creator beings not want to go out and experience a bunch of different realms and a bunch of different experiences? And if you don't have something to compare it with, like pain, suffering, joy, happiness, laughter, love, if you don't know what those things are and you come here, it's easy to see how we can all fall into this deception in a big, big way. So, yeah.
But I believe now all of us are on a rescue mission for God. And
boy.
To the level we can see that, awaken to it, or in some cases, some people live it. They're on different levels, different planes, I would prefer to say, than I am, where, I believe in Buddhism, they call it bodhisattva, where they're sacrificing their very existence, coming here to help other people. And I would never put myself in that category. For me, it's been a slow turning. This has been decades in the making for Wayne Morrison. What I feel is happening with me is the Wayne Morrison who suffered the typical brash arrogance of youth has given way to more of the spiritual being God created versus the thing Wayne Morrison. I used it. I really was a very, I think people would probably say, oh yeah, he was a character, when they look back on it. I was pretty emphatic and active and verbal. And I am not as much of that anymore. And that has been partly by choice, but mostly, in my opinion, by salvation, because I'm being brought out of the egoic world slowly, thankfully, because I'm just in a spiritual term, I would think I'm just an infant. I'm just really coming out of this and beginning to accept that we're not these characters we made, these people, these roles we play.
Yeah,
and I get we play them. I mean, and I'm thankful that I got these roles to play. But I also, for me, I need to recognize that these roles were a stepping stone to why we're really here. And it's not to make a lot of money, and it's not to be a hero, and it's not to be famous. To me, it's really to return to the full awareness of God and creation.
And I think so many of us are very similar to you, that we are learning along the way. And as we grow older, we come to understand things more. And I also think people like you are really helping other people to come along themselves and to grow in various ways.
Do you mean because of the experience I had?
No, I think just in life in general, I think your experience certainly helped push you in that direction. But I think as we're exposed to things like this, and just as we learn and grow, we become wiser in so many cases.
Yes. I heard Bob Dylan recently say, a man, you could say a man or a woman, but he wrote, a man trades his youth for wisdom. And it resonated. I said, okay, I get that.
That is so true. That is so true. And you also were mentioning the ego. And I had a guest recently, Jeff Olson.
Okay, so before they go any further, I just have one more thing to say before we go off into break. One of the things that Bob Dylan said, and some of you may already be familiar with this, is there's a 60 Minutes interview where he openly admits that he made a deal with the chief commander. All right. And it was, with, let's see, let me try. In exchange for his fame and fortune. That's an open admission. I will try and leave that link for you. And I'd play it, but it's a 60 Minutes clip. But, Bob Dylan isn't exactly the individual who I would be looking at as a kind and noble man, right? Look, he's a hell of a songwriter. I mean, I was big into him, especially in my teenage years and early 20s. Look, he's still got a great body of work. He's absolutely wretched to see live. I don't know if any of you had the chance to see him live. Horrible. And he's still touring. In I don't know what, mid 80s or something like that. Anyways, not to go off on too much of a tangent, I think we all have within us how do I put this? We all have within us the drive to ask the big questions. And some of us aren't content with the answers that the system provides us. And some like to be lazy and just whatever the system presents, they eat up with a, fork and knife and don't think anything of it. Religion is lazy. By just falling into religions, it's matrix spirituality that, it knows certain things that will appeal to certain large groups of individuals so it can suck you in and keep you contained in the box of the matrix. And the matrix has all sorts of boxes all over the place, whether you like sports, whether you like religion, whether you like politics or video games, on and on. You pick the topic. There's a whole whole bunch of boxes out there for you to fall into. And as long as you aren't asking questions outside of those beautiful boxes that the Matrix creates, the Matrix doesn't give a damn. It does not care. All it cares about is you staying in those boxes. So what we'll do is take a brief break and look forward to coming back here. And we still have a whole nother section to go. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming up. So take a little stretch break, and we will see each other very soon. Thank you so much. All right, we're coming back, my friends. Thank you for your patience. Oh. All right. Being attacked by oh. All right, this is Mr. Buster. Guy's getting tangled in my. All right, okay. Well. Anyways, hope you're doing well. Welcome back. Give you a quick hello. There's a little man. There's a little man. There's a little man. Okay, so welcome back. And so we're going to get into part 2 shortly. Just want to remind everybody that on the Forever Conscious Research Truth in Gaming channel, we'll be having part 2 of the Wild Eternal, I think it was called. And it's wow, just so far the game is just off the charts with truth bombs. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, feel free to join us afterwards. I believe YouTube should send you over afterwards, or at least offer you the option, but I will drop it in the chat for anyone interested on all the platforms in a moment. There's also a few other things I wanted to make you guys aware of. I've opened up 2 new channels on Rumble. So there is aware of. Oh, sorry about that. There is the Truth in Gaming channel. That's going to be the same as what's going on YouTube. But then I'm also going to be doing on Rumble and probably Odyssey a new channel called Laughing at the Clown World Matrix. So if you're interested in joining that, I will put that link up. And it's basically just a chill channel where we'll have some laughs at the insanity that goes on here. I've had quite a bit of videos I've been compiling over the years, and I think we'll have some fun. So unfortunately, it's not something I can do on YouTube. I would, but you know, I want to be able to freaking just say what I want to, right? You know, so please consider subscribing to that channel. And there will also be likely a Odyssey channel for that as well. But in the meantime, that's the Rumble channel. I also do have an email list if you're interested in subscribing to stay up to date with the channel. To date, it's just a way for me to stay in touch with y'all in case something should happen on any of the platforms, more specifically YouTube. And then I have an Instagram, a Twitter, I'm probably forgetting some other things. Facebook, if you have Facebook. All those are kind of mainly for notifications, especially Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All those are just to, you know, put out the word, hey, we're going live at this time. Here are the links. And also occasionally drop some memes or interesting things that I run across. Also, if you're interested, I do have memberships available on Odyssey and YouTube. I may open those up on Rumble as well through that locals thing, but you know, it's a lot of work. It's just another platform to add. So not sure when and if I'll get to that. But in the meantime, if you're if you want to get some extra content each month, we do monthly members live streams with the live streams tier and above. And there's also a backlog of videos available to you as well. And you also get access to the members research and chat Discord server. And of course, your support is always appreciated, but never expected. And I do have alternative ways to YouTube if you'd like to donate to the channel. That's, of course, appreciated. This is not happening again. We lose each other. One moment. I cannot freaking believe this is happening again. Buffering, huh? I did seems like we're okay. I did a over 6 hour test stream earlier in the week and everything was fine. So, all right, I guess we're back. Anyways, swear to God. Anyways, we'll just move on. Also, last thing, I'm sorry. I do have one-on-one sessions available if you're interested as well. And please consider hitting the like button. And if you're new, subscribing, hitting the bell for all notifications. I'm still getting messages from a few of you out there almost weekly saying that, yeah, you know, I even with the bell selected to all, I'm not getting all the notifications. But sometimes the issue is that the bell isn't set to all, so you may not get the notification from YouTube. Or the other platforms like Odyssey and Rumble, they also send emails out, I believe, and push notifications if you have the apps or if you're not set on your browser. And so that's where the other platforms come in handy too, just as an alternative way to kind of give you a heads up as to when we're going to go live. So, all right, let's just move along here, and thank you for your patience with all this, and hopefully we'll be all right.
This is
What the heck's going on? Why didn't it? Hold on.
And I think so many of us are very similar to you, that we are learning along the way. And as we grow older, we come to understand things more. And I also think people like you are really helping other people to come along themselves and to grow in various ways.
Do you mean because of the experience I had?
No, I think just in life in general, I think your experience certainly helped push you in that direction. But I think as we're exposed to things like this, and just as we learn and grow, we become wiser in so many cases.
Yes. I heard Bob Dylan recently say, a man, you could say a man or a woman, but he wrote, a man trades his youth for wisdom. And it resonated. I said, okay, I get that.
That is so true. That is so true. And you also were mentioning the ego. And I had a guest recently, Jeff Olson, who was really fascinating. And we were talking about the ego, and he said something that I hadn't thought of before. He said the ego is kind of like lifting weights. And, you know,
yes,
you need to grow that resistance to the ego. So you need the ego to grow.
Yes. Wow. And Jeff was the man in the car accident. Is that right?
Yes, he was in a horrible car accident.
Yeah. And that's how I first saw you. And I told you the story. I said, well, I don't know who this is. I said, let me just see. Oh, she's got a site here. And I hit it. And I said to my wife, look, this is the one we just watched a couple weeks ago, because it left a big impact. He was profoundly impactful. And yes, I would agree with that. And also, I think, and this is unfortunate in our earthly lives, but I think it's also true that when things are really good for us, and most of us want things to be really good for us, we don't spiritually grow much. It's in times of trouble that we tend to find our deeper growth, I believe. So when things, I have a daughter. So her son, sorry, I got a little emotional here. Her husband got cancer in his 30s, and he died. And he left behind 2 kids. And she's become very, very spiritually oriented. And I can't help but believe that that horrible process of losing her husband was what catapulted it.
And maybe it was planned, even though that seems so hard to fathom.
I know, yes. So if you listen to different people, including Betty Eadie comes to mind, that maybe, I mean, Anne Frank, you know, to plan to be in Auschwitz, to, as Lee Whitting pointed out, he said, George Floyd, he said, somebody had to agree to give up their life. I go, you're right, I hadn't really thought about it. And I said, and somebody had to give up their freedom. And what was that all about? I don't know. I don't know. You know, all these events that happen.
Is it for a greater purpose?
Right. Is it for a greater purpose?
What is the greater purpose? Could we get real here? Come on. What greater purpose? I mean, really, all the suffering, the atrocities, everything that happens here, a greater purpose? No, it's part of the life script. It's part of, you know, having that massive connection between husband and wife severed at a young age with children or a child. I don't remember if she said it was multiple children or not, but the point is that's just one example of tremendous suffering. And yes, trauma helps individuals awaken. No doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. But I'm sorry. Just cringes me out to just hear the excuse making or the just running in circles and trying to justify everything that happens there. It's just, ugh.
And I said, and somebody had to give up their freedom. And what was that all about? I don't know. I don't know. You know, all these events that happen.
Is it for a greater purpose?
Right. Is it for a greater purpose?
And I will say, when I'm in the really difficult events, it is really hard to see that this is meant to be. But once I'm past them, I'm like, okay, this led me to this, and this makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. And that's where I feel.
No, it doesn't make sense.
It's at for me now.
Doesn't make sense.
I can't say it ended up there because I believe with all my heart you don't end up anywhere. You know, I think you go on in a multitude of ways. I don't know. I guess I could believe in reincarnation at this stage. I always resisted it because I really don't want to come back here and do this all again. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, welcome to the club, buddy. Exactly. Don't want to come back here and do it all again. You know, part of me wants to reach out to Wayne Morrison, and any of you are welcome to attempt if you'd like. I'd love to have him on for an interview and talk with him, because he's going through his own process, right? And anyone who can seriously sit here and say, look, I don't want to reincarnate again, you never know. You might be able to, you know, pierce through that experience and help them. I don't know. One thing I have found is that, you know, talking with the Love and Light NDEers is not easy. I've spoken with quite a few, and then there's some who have even had the Love and Light experience and finally came to see the Soul Trap, which is amazing because there aren't many. The ones I do hear from that, you know, most of these individuals don't want to talk publicly, but I get emails, and sometimes I do side interviews or one-on-ones just to kind of hear what they have to say. And unfortunately, they're not always, or most of the time, not wanting to share their experience, especially the hellish-like experiences, but they see it for what it is. And a lot of times it takes them quite a while to get there and see it. But that's like one of the amazing things that happens once in a while behind the scenes. And I wish I could share those moments with y'all, but you know, I respect everyone's privacy and what their decision to share and not share with publicly. So, anyways.
Or if I get reincarnated, I hope it's like a better deal.
I think a lot of people are saying that as well.
Yes, I think so. And now,
Oh yeah, everyone. Who the hell wants to come back here? Who wants to come back to this? Come on. Imagine coming back, dealing with the human experience into a freaking transhumanist hellhole. Oh my God. Just the thought of it is ugh.
Today, the younger generation and all of us really are facing a new sort of spiritual challenge. The internet, all of that should be drawing us all together, and right here it is. But it also simultaneously can be working against being with each other, And I get that, and I don't think it makes us any worse off than previous generations. I mean, would I have wanted to go through the Great Depression? Would I have wanted to have given my life on the beaches of Normandy in World War II? So every generation, Civil War, you name it. Every generation you can look at has these trials and tribulations, and ours have just altered. They're a new style of trial and tribulation because, as we all know, the only constant is change. And everything is changing rapidly.
Okay, so, here he is, Wayne himself, admitting, every generation has their trials and tribulations. Exactly. And that's what my intro video to the channel talks about. How throughout all of documented history, regardless of what you believe about the historic narrative, we all know that there's a lot of lies in there, tons of them. But there's one consistent thing, well, a few consistent things that appear. And that's atrocities. That's the stomping on humanity's sovereignty at every which way, shape, or form. That is consistent. Something controlling, some parasitic control system stomping on us every chance they get, regardless of where and when you were born. Now, were some time periods worse than others? Of course. Are some regimes worse than others? Of course. But it doesn't matter. It makes no difference because it's the same thing, just in that current time period of what's going on. It's the same bunch of BS being floated all over the place. And either you try to try to go along and get by the skin of your teeth, or in some cases, they join the parasitic class, or they work at the behest of the system and do as they're told, and all those kind of orders come down to the population of wherever you may live, on and on and on. So yeah, nothing changes because everything is playing itself out the exact way it's supposed to.
But the one thing that won't change that I know, and it gives me deep comfort, and I wish I could give it to everybody, is God's love. I understand that. And that's a blessing for me.
Well, Wayne, I am so enjoying this conversation with you, and I have a lot more questions, but let's take that into part 2.
Okay, so now we're going to go to part 2.
Okay.
Bear with me one moment here.
Be here.
It is great to have you. I want to go back to something that we talked about in part 1, and that was the being of the highest order.
Yes.
You said initially you did not know who that was. You thought maybe it was
Correct.
God, maybe it was Jesus.
Yes.
But later you did come around to think that was Jesus. Why did you evolve in that direction?
Again, it was a lifelong tug of war with me and Jesus. I don't think it was on Jesus's part. I think it was mine. I just resisted because I adhered to the Western ideas of proof and science, which when I look at it, there is very little proof of anything. Even, I'm going to get off track, but I've said this before. I've said to people, I can prove to you, you don't know where you are. And people go, oh, no, I have charts, I have maps. I go, no, we don't even know where we are in the universe. It's just provable. It's not even a debate. So for me and Jesus, when I was in the Philippines, so I would have been in my early 20s, I had, which is very odd for me, a vivid dream. I'm one of those people who can go years without remembering any dream whatsoever. I don't know why that is, but it's always been that way. But I had a very lucid dream, you would call it. And I was huddled with some people, and I was feeling this arrogance, this cockiness, but I didn't know what the subject was. And the people were saying to me, but what will you do when it happens? And I would say, I'm all set, don't worry about it. And then all of a sudden the skies got really dark, and there was this ominous sound, which was very similar to that tunnel sound I described. And people went running behind these rocks. We were all like in this, I guess, a barren field, and there were rocks, big boulders. And they went running behind them, and when I looked, there was a man dragging a cross, and it was not a wooden cross, it was a stone cross, huge, and he was being whipped. And I looked at him, and I ran behind the rocks, and I hid as he went by. And that bothered me. It's always bothered me, because it didn't make any sense. I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised in any religion. But over the years,
He may not have been raised that way, but he had awareness, right? If you have awareness of it, and maybe subconsciously, see, this is where like talking with Wayne would really help, is to kind of pry into his childhood, and he kind of even questions himself and soon, which is interesting. So I think maybe subconsciously, or tucked away in the back of his head, let's say, there was probably that questioning, right? Like maybe he veered more towards the Jesus God narrative than something else.
I started looking at what this man said thousands of years ago, and I thought to myself, I mean, these words are like diamonds that existed at a time when people, nobody was literate. I doubt the historical Jesus would have been literate, as in could write. And yet he seemed to have all these parables and ways of saying things. I mean, we use them all the time in our lives. I mean, how easy to see the splinter in your neighbor's eye, but not the plank in your own. And there were all these things would stick in my mind. And I said, what's going on here? And I felt myself pulled that way. And the short of it is that as I felt like I was willing to maybe accept it, a woman named Lilia came into my life because she wanted me to be on NDE radio. And I told her pretty much what I was telling you. And she said, well, why don't you just finally accept it? And I thought to myself, she's right. I've been fighting this. So now I do accept it. I do accept it was Jesus. I believe it probably was. And I think of Jesus, the way I think of Jesus isn't as this, I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody, but if I said something negative about Jesus, I don't really think Jesus would care. I think he's probably the elder brother who got, he agreed to do something that was pretty big, which was to start. He makes this statement, and I'll be honest, I've never read the Bible, but I've read pieces of the Bible. And I was just recently reading, and he said, I have come to bring the kingdom of my Father's kingdom of heaven to earth. And I think that a lot of the disciples and people thought they were going to get, a kingship, a governorship. But I look at it and I go, no, I think he was starting what we are all doing now. And we just can't fathom the time that it would take thousands and thousands of years. We're stuck in this concept of time. And so I think he really was starting the kingdom of heaven on earth. But I personally don't believe it so he can sit on a throne and boss us around. I think it's the exact opposite. I think he's one of us, and he was an enlightened one. There may be others, but he's the one that I accept was enlightened by God and could see through the illusions that I think if we all saw through, we would, our bodies would cease to exist. So,
and possibly why so many people have a hard time believing in him is that man has projected so much on him that probably isn't really true.
Yes, that was always a big problem for me. I mean, and I have friends and relatives who see it that way, and you come to certain, I've heard people say, basically Jesus is going to get you, and the spirits I met, assuming that's Jesus, they're not here to get you. They're here to help you in each and every way, to help you, to help everybody. These are beings of infinite help. They don't want anything but the best for us.
It's such a wacky assumption. They want nothing but the best for us. This is straight out of the New Age and straight out of a lot of, of the experiencer narratives. It really is. It's this is what the Matrix perpetuates. It's crazy. It's completely contradictory to what is happening here. Oh yeah, it doesn't include zero ads. That's true. Thank you, Break the Spell. I guess don't vote if you haven't gotten any ads. Anyways, yeah, it's just so contradictory to what is looking out for humanity that has done any good whatsoever besides ourselves on a small scale, helping one another, friends, family, community, whatever the case may be, versus God cares and he's looking out for everybody. Jesus cares and is looking out for everybody. Talk is cheap, right? Talk is cheap. Where's the action? It doesn't exist. Yeah, a small segment of the population has a temporary and short experience where they feel that way. And, lo and behold, what happens? They come back and they share the narrative of the Matrix to get others to believe, to get others to feel reassured through things like other spiritual texts that say, oh, God loves you, God loves us, he's always looking out for you, blah, blah, blah. Well, what about the child experiencing SRA? Who's looking out for that child? Day in and day out, year in and year out, months, years at a time. Who's looking out for that child? Huh? What about that one? Huh? It's easy. It's so easy to just cloak over, just glaze over everything that doesn't impact you as an individual versus thinking about others who suffer on a massive, grand scale. That's the problem. It's very easy to just sit there and wash your hands of anything else that's going on in the world that is just filled with atrocities. What about the children in the Chinese factories building your iPhones? And they have freaking suicide nets outside the windows for children and adults because they have to work in a sweatshop, 12, 15 hours a day. What about them? Where's God looking out for them? Huh? Come on. Let's just talk common sense. It's so easy to just live in a bubble, in a small reality, and not think about all of the horridness that's going on out there. And I know some of you out there have suffered greatly. And everyone has their own story, their own experiences, and their own suffering, right? And everyone has their own joys and their love and their happiness, all right? Fine. But don't sit here and tell me that God is looking out for us. The fact that God isn't looking out for us, so the so-called God, is proof enough. The fact that God is not looking out for the child in the Chinese sweatshop or the SRA victim, and on and on and on. The fact that that's not occurring says it all. Says it all. The fact that there is a homeless man or woman or a homeless family with children who can't afford rent, got kicked out of their apartment or their home, can't afford food, can't afford to put gas in their car. Where's God looking out for them? We can go all day with this, but I am so sick of just everything being simplified down to this excuse-making behavior. It's just frustrating. It's like common sense does not exist. It's like, if it doesn't impact me, it doesn't exist. And, I am not crapping on Wayne. I'm not by any means. I'm not. It's just that when you hear this narrative over and over and over again, and it continually be perpetuated, it just gets old. It gets old because where's the common sense? That's all I'll say. Just where is the common sense? Cognitive dissonance is a bitch.
And like you said, mankind, I think, has got this concept that we're human. And until we give up the idea that we're human, I think we're going to be stuck in this to some degree. It's going to, I hate to get caught up in time, but I think it might take a while before we all, and that includes me, come around to accepting we're not human. We are God. We're the very creation. There is, when I say I'm God, I know I'm God. I am not God alone. I am just a part of God. I believe a butterfly is. I believe the mosquito is. I believe the snake, the water. I believe it's all part of God. This is all.
Okay, so it's so funny because I was talking about this earlier today, how, we are creator beings. Okay. Now, Wayne has a realization through his experience and many other NDEers, and among other experiencer types, they always, well, not always, but often talked about how they have a realization that, yes, they are a godlike being or a creator being. They have, they have that realization, but they still have that programming that there is something above them. We're all creative beings. He said it. Butterfly, water, tree, I don't know, the dog, the cat, all humans, etc., etc. All that stuff. But, there's still something exterior to yourself that what you have to worship or, reunite with or merge with or go to and take orders from. I don't think so.
All an infinite creation, and how that is, like, if that was shown to me, I don't remember it. It might have been, but I feel like there were probably things that were taken away from me because I clearly can't remember why. They must have told me why I was coming back to Earth because I agreed all of a sudden.
Boom. There's the memory wipe up front and center. And, this is something we've heard before. I mean, it's not new. It's incredible. Yeah, I don't remember. I must have agreed. Blah, 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 blah. This is the problem. And it's just listen to him.
Snake, the water. I believe it's all part of God. This is all an infinite creation. And how that is, like, if that was shown to me, I don't remember it. It might have been, but I feel like there were probably things.
If that was shown to me, I don't remember. But
it was shown to me, I don't remember it. It might have been, but I feel like there were probably things that were taken away from me because I clearly can't remember why. They must have told me why I was coming back to Earth because I agreed all of a sudden. And I have no idea, no memory of that. There wasn't anything I could remember. I just remember going, okay, I've agreed to come back. But then I chickened out. Like I told you, I was trying to get back right away, but thankfully, I think somebody had to come down and interrupt that.
Is that frustrating at all that you were there and you felt like you had all the answers and you knew all this knowledge, and then you get back here and you're like, I can't remember it?
Well, just imagine you're trying to kill yourself, and not out of hating your life, but because of the wonderful joy you had there. And what's left to come, I think we just have to get over the time thing. I think, especially me, I only have this much time. How will I get to this stage? I got to get to this stage. I have in recent days just been more accepting to go, everything is unfolding as it should, and everything is happening for my good. So
Everything is happening for your good. Again, what about others? What about others? I mean, look, I am happy for Wayne. He's getting through life the best way he can, and performing mental gymnastics along the way. But Wayne must have asked a question about his daughter losing her husband. Like, what makes that right? But we got to keep in mind that, Wayne had his NDE when he was 17 years old back in the 70s, right? So it's been, a number of decades, I would assume, since his experience that his daughter lost her husband. I mean, I don't know when it happened, but I've had to guess maybe in the last 10 years, 15 years. It's couldn't be much longer than that, I guess, but maybe. But anyways, it's I don't know. I don't even know what I was going to say. Sorry.
been more accepting to go, everything is unfolding as it should. And
That's it. Yes. Everything is unfolding the way it should. Exactly. Everything does unfold the way it's supposed to unfold, because this is how this realm is. It's supposed to be the way it is because it's parasitic in nature.
should, and everything is happening for my good. So when I get frustrated too much, I'm only human. I do what everyone does. I get angry. I get frustrated. I'm certainly no saint. I'm just a normal person.
We are impatient beings.
Yes, and I've just come to the area of my life where I understand that God has been watching over me, his angels. It's angels, if you prefer, no gender, because I don't know if God's a gender, I don't even know. But I believe that God has been watching over me and all of us, and it's my accepting it that has made my life easier, even though my physical body is getting older and it's not as physically fun as it was, a couple decades ago. But and the realities of our health, my wife has, one or two small health issues, and you start saying to yourself, well, how does this impact another 5 years, another 10 years? And the truth is, we're all going to depart. I hate using the word die because it has so much baggage with it, but we're all going to exit here. I'm not the guy who has to tell anyone that. We all know that. We're all leaving here. The question is, where are we going? And I can't answer that with certainty, but I do know that wherever it is, I want to give myself, it's a bit selfish actually, the best chance to advance my spirit and soul. And I think the best way I could do that is to be truly helpful, not just to put out these videos. That's fantastic that I can have a chance to deliver the message that was given to me, but day to day, the people you see in the workplace. I see so many unhappy people now, and where I was once young and oblivious to it, it hurts me now. I can feel their pain.
Okay, so look, Wayne's goal, like all of us, is liberation, right? In his case, it's advancement, because he believes that he has to answer to the system, that he has to do a certain set of things in order to advance himself so that he doesn't reincarnate again. And he himself says, oh, I see people who are miserable or hurting or in pain. And he it hurts him at his core. And look, I relate with that. And I'm sure many of you in the chat have great compassion and empathy for all those who suffer, who are having a rough go at it. But, propping up the Matrix just doesn't work for me anymore. It doesn't. It really, really just stings to hear, Wayne deserves better. Wayne's family deserves better. All of our friends and family and selves deserve better. We all need to think bigger, beyond this Matrix. This is something I like to talk about a lot. We need to think big. We can't limit ourselves to just thinking that, oh, well, this realm is the way it is, and everything is as advertised in the afterlife, and blah, blah, blah. No. How come we are memory wiped? How come we don't know where we came from, why we are here, or where we are going? Why is that? The nail in the Matrix coffin is the memory wipe, and there is no excusing that away. I don't care how many people try to make excuses for it. There's nothing that anyone can ever say to me that can justify the fact that we are memory wiped and incapable of knowing where we came from before we came into this system, if that makes any sense. It's just frustrating. It's frustrating. We all need to think bigger. That's the bottom line. We need to think beyond this Matrix system, not just Earth, but the overall system. The system that is claiming that we need to advance spiritually and yada, 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 all that stuff. That's what we need to think bigger from. We need to think, hey, we're eternal beings. What the hell were we doing before we even came in here? Not just Earth, the Matrix. When I say came in here, I mean just the front gates of the Matrix, right? What was going on right before we crossed over past the Matrix gates, so to say? What were we doing? Where did we go? What did we experience? Who were we hanging out with? That's it. It's like in this whole system is just designed in a way to get you to think so limited. It's frustrating. We shouldn't limit ourselves. We need to think bigger. And if you don't want to think bigger, then you're going to fall victim to this place. That's just the bottom line. You're going to fall right back into it and give it exactly what it wants. It doesn't want you questioning it. It doesn't want you saying, whoa, what the hell? Yeah, you're right. The memory wipe is a big thing. He doesn't want those questions being asked. He doesn't want you saying, oh, what was I? Who was I before I came in here? It doesn't want any of that going on. That just exposes the whole thing. Very, very simple, small concepts. Small thinking opens up a wide array of what the possibilities are about what we've done, where we've came from, who we've, gone to other realms with and experienced existence with. Remember, we're eternal beings. Eternal. We don't die. We're always going to be in existence. So, what were we doing before we came here? That's it. Think big, my friends. You deserve it.
Oddly.
And we can all do small things every single day to help.
Big things.
Every
big
day.
Things.
And I'm not the first one to say this, but when you look at somebody, you never know what they're going through.
No,
you never know.
Exactly.
You just don't know.
Very true. You were surrounded at one point by hundreds or thousands of beings.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you knew them?
Yes. I wouldn't say that I could recount how I knew them. But yeah, everybody felt familiar to me. It felt like home is what it felt like. It felt like if you were on it's hard to put into earthly terms because it's a home that we don't remember, in my opinion. We don't really remember this home.
Exactly. We don't
But
remember.
when you remember it, and I'm not the first one to say this, I've heard a lot of NDEers say this, you don't want to leave. And
You don't want to leave. This is the big, okay. One more thing. Gotta say this. And, you know, I try to keep my mouth shut with a lot of this stuff, but screw it. All right. So, a great example here is Wes Penray. A great example here is someone like Ike, right? And among others, all right, who think, oh, you know, it's just similar narratives, right? Oh, you know, you got to go between the grid, or you got to use your intention to go between the grid, or you've got to turn around and say, I want to go home, or you got to die at a 45-degree angle, and on and on and on and on and on. All right, all these different things. Remember, these are instructions being given by others telling you what to do. This is how you achieve liberation. You've got to think about going home. Well, what do we hear over and over and over again? We hear that the home is light. The light. All right? That's what we keep hearing. Everything is love and light. The whole answer to the universe is love. The whole, you know, and so if, think about it, you've been memory wiped lifetime after lifetime, right? You die. You say, oh, you know, I'm using my intention to go home. Well, a lot of times from what I'm seeing, and I know many of you are seeing, is that home is the light. Wayne is talking about it here himself, okay? And tons of other experiencers. What if there is no home? What if home doesn't exist? We like to think in this human perception, right? Oh, that that these are locations that we need to go to. What if a home doesn't exist? And what if the last home that you still feel is home is the light? No. That's just too dangerous. Like, you know, I know I'm kind of ranting a lot today, but it's really important to see where the smallest things could bite you in the ass. That's it. I'm sorry. And you know, the two names that I mentioned, you know, you might get some little pieces here and there, but overall, you know, when the rubber meets the road, they're very, very, very dangerous concepts to subscribe to. What's that doing? What is that doing? Just the very thought that you have, that you feel that you need to go between the grid, or that you need to go home or turn around. Like as you're going down the tunnel, you need to say, stop. And then turn around and say, I want to go home. That's Alex Collier said that too. He's another beauty. Anyways, all these things, right? What is it doing? It's showing lack of confidence in yourself. Lack of confidence. And that's exactly what this system wants. Do you think that this whole place hasn't thought of something already to kind of sneak its way into those of us who kind of figure out the BS, or to sneak in its way to those who have figured things out and are this close, and then you get them on a technicality because they don't feel confident in themselves. They don't have a self-empowerment. They don't truly have the sovereign mindset. And that's really what it boils down to. I know this may be harsh, but It's true. If you don't have the sovereign mindset, that means unrelenting. It's you. You are making the decision every step of the way. If you don't have that truly embedded in you and think that you need to go along with what someone else is saying and that you need to go to an actual location, that just shows right there that you're lacking the confidence in yourself. I'm trying to build that up and say, hey, take the road of non-interference. Take the road of sovereignty, liberation, creating your realm. Intention, intention, intention. Creating your own realm outside of the entire system, if that's even something, right? The point is it's a zone that you are allowing yourself to be in that is incapable of being infiltrated. That's all. That's all. And again, if I'm wrong about everything, if we're all wrong about everything, we'll find out. But instead of getting mixed in this BS, because that's what it is, one of the names I mentioned, his solution is you've got to go to 5D. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry. I've had enough of it. I've had enough. It's so simple. Everything is simple. Just don't overcomplicate things and don't take away you. Don't allow outside thinking to creep its way in and get you confused and think that you need to go here, you need to go there, you need to do this, you need to do that. No, just take the sovereign path from start to finish, non-interference path from start to finish, create your own and get the hell out of here and do what you need to do and, isolate yourself for a period of time until you feel comfortable enough to go and do your own thing. That's it. That's it. So, I don't know. I'm sorry. I just kind of ranty today. Sorry, guys.
With few exceptions, and there have been exceptions, most people will do anything they can to stay there. But I do think that certain people, I think that Edie was one, were shown, well, you have these choices, which is a great thing. This is such an incredible thing to know that while the script may be partially written out, it's not fully written out. You get free will, and this makes you an honored soul that is co-creating with God. This is, and we don't even recognize it. I should wake up every morning and go, God gave me this opportunity to help create with him. And I don't, I just go through my day like I do, but it's opportunities like this or, moments where you can reflect and pray or meditate, which is what we do now. We have done it for a lot of years, actually. And the other thing I'll say, and I'm not selling this, it's just a thing we ended up doing, 20-something years ago, is we started reading a book called A Course in Miracles. I'm not sure if you heard of that before.
Oh, I've heard of it.
And that resonated with me. And somebody once said, well, the reason it resonates with you is because you're an intellectual. And I kind of rebuffed that because, I don't know, I think false modesty or something. But in truth, it does resonate with me because it's intellectual. Whereas other books might resonate for different reasons with different people. But for me, The Course in Miracles is so, when I say intellectual, it's basically a book about your mind being the spirit. And for me and for my wife, it works. And we've used it close to daily, for decades now. And it just helps ground us, I think, a bit.
You did what so many others do, or I should say you say what so many other near-death experiencers say. You refer to it as home. Why is that?
Great question.
Because in the best home you've had here on earth, wherever that may have been, wherever that was, where it was, everything felt like you could get peace and solitude, it's a million times better. So
that's part of the deception.
I'm thinking of when I lived in Rhode Island, and it was maybe October, November, and there was a fire going, and it may be Christmas time because we loved Christmas. We do love Christmas, but back then it was a big thing because the family was all around. And there's that glow. And that glow, you know, I often thought of it as a physical glow, the glow of the fire, the glow of the lights, but there's a glow of the soul. And and I understand people have very different lives, and many people have never had this. I'm blessed. I get this. Some people didn't have that. Some people grew up in mountains and horrific circumstances. I'm just talking about from my perspective.
Okay, see, like that's like isn't it? Look, you know, I don't want Wayne to think I'm you know, crapping on him. I really don't. But you have to think back to what we were talking about earlier. How, you know, God is looking over you. God is looking over you. But yet we have later on now this acknowledgement that, you know, hey, you know, I realize I'm blessed and this and that. But, you know, not everyone had the opportunity to grow up in the situation or have the situation that I did. Either as a child or as an adult. But, you know, it's like, how can God be looking out for someone and, again, allow, you know, horrible atrocities? I know I'm like a broken record, but it's important to point that out because we're seeing a contradiction right here in real time compared to what was discussed earlier. That's all. But, you know, it's powered by his experience too. There's no doubt. Like the experiencers have a very, very profound interaction with the light and with this thing called God, source, creator, whatever it is, right? That they feel it is. It's very profound, and it's something I like to bring up regularly is that, you know, a lot of these experiencers become matrix customers for life. That's it. They become customers for life for this lifetime because of how powerful the experience that they had was.
In mountains and horrific circumstances. I'm just talking about from my perspective. So that home that meant so much to me in this life, if I compare it to the home I felt in front of the presence of these beings, it just, there's no comparison. It's just infinitely better, the other one.
Tell me more about the civilizations you saw. Were they Earth-like structures? Were they like people? Was it something totally different?
To me, yes. I never saw anything that struck me as like, I don't know, alien, you know, or anything like that. They looked like human beings to me. They looked like, some looked more modern. It almost looked to me like different versions of the Earth, you know, like at different stages of the Earth, which was interesting because it wasn't presented that way to me. The question I had was, what about all these different areas of the universe? Is there life? And that's what I was shown. So I recently heard somebody, and I don't even know who, I can't remember who it was, but say something about they were given a choice of whether to go to Earth or all these other places. And that was fascinating to me because I don't recall getting that choice. Maybe I did, but I don't recall it. And I thought that was fascinating because there probably is a huge variety of existences you can choose to have. And a lot of these people talk about, and again, I had no distinct memory of this, but a lot of people talk about assigning the very problems they were going to have, you know, losing a leg, losing a loved one. Mr. Olson, is that his name?
Mm-hmm, right, Jeff Olson.
Yeah, presumably that was an agreement, you know, and an agreement of, wow, what an agreement. I mean,
right.
Yeah. And Betty Eadie talked.
So, you know, Jeff's story is heartbreaking, crushing. Now, you know, if I remember, I did cover his experience, and I think he lost his wife and 2 children in a car wreck. And he was he was the only survivor, actually, hold on, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it was his wife, and there was 3 children, and 2 of the 3 children passed. I think he has a son who's alive, but don't quote me on any of that because I'm not 100% sure. And I could be completely wrong about the entire case and thinking of somebody else. But yeah, life. We each come here with a life script, and have links to the soul group that we're involved with, which could be our friends, family, pets, etc., acquaintances, all that stuff. It all lumps in, and the life script we pick, could be, worse than another one or better than another one, or you could have, financial success. You can have, the pits of hell experience, or you could have financial success and be in a traumatic family. I mean, there's so many different things that can occur, and there's no doubt that there's a life script, and that there is also beings involved with helping us pick a specific life script under the guise of karma, retribution for karma, and also learning and growing spiritually. But again, that all falls by the wayside when you roll out the truth of the memory wipe. The fact that we come here lifetime after lifetime, not knowing where we came from, why we are here, or where we are going. And if you're supposed to learn and grow spiritually as a being, then why don't you have a memory for it? No, I'm repeating myself, but it's important to make sure anyone who's kind of running across this for the first time sees the insanity that is out there to justify this experience. And it's just common sense. It all just washes away when you see the narratives that are consistently being pushed through experiencers and what the truth is of this existence, which is that you're memory wiped. And if you're learning and growing and excelling spiritually, that's the goal of Earth, then why would you be memory wiped? If you're working on karma and trying to redeem yourself, then how come you don't know what you did in a past lifetime to make sure that you don't do it again? That's simple. Again, common sense.
Talks about a man on Wall Street, I think, who's an attorney, and his very close soul spirit friend in the real existence. He agreed to come down and be a drunken bum laying there, and this guy would have to step over him every day to teach him, to advance his spirit. And so I guess that's probably why we're here. We're in school, we're in school. And as far as school goes, I'd like to think it was advanced, but I'm thinking it's kindergarten,
Yeah, a lot of us have a long way to go.
Parasitic deception.
Yeah. You mentioned connection to everything. Do you think that includes our thoughts?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Because our thoughts are not separate there. And there's nothing to hide. It's not like you have to hide that you did something bad. There's nothing there that's being judged. You're 100% in the clear. You've been exonerated before you even showed up in court. There's all this guilt, this sin that we've attributed to ourselves. It's not there. So we have a ton of it here. We create these guilt patterns and
why is there a life
regrets
script?
that we have.
Why is there a life review?
They just don't exist there. It's just a purity of. And again, if you said to somebody there, well, I wonder why you think that, you wouldn't get that. That wouldn't even get to there, because you would then be catapulted into that person's reality. And who knows what those beings have been through. We don't know. I don't know. We don't even know what we've been through. Heather and Wayne, we don't really even have any concept of that. It's hard enough understanding what your family has been through, your very family members, and I sometimes look at it and I go, oh, I see that I didn't see,
You also saw the history of the world.
Yeah.
Why do you think you saw that?
That's a good question. I'm just wondering if part of it is because I was so, I wanted to know things. I was a very, I was a searcher. When I look back on it, both intellectually and the word I would use now is spiritually. I wouldn't have used it then because I didn't even think in terms like that. But when I look back on it, I can see that from the beginning, I was searching, always searching for God and for information on the earthly plane and on the God plane, you know, which isn't, well, it is here, but, you know, it's here in a different way. And I think that I just wanted answers. I was just such an inquisitive kid. I really wanted the answers to everything, truly everything. I wanted all the answers. And that question first started with, I think a lot of us have probably done this. I certainly did it. It's one of my earliest memories. Why am I here? It was like one of my earliest memories. Like
Exactly. I think we all asked that from as far back as we probably have memories for, if not forgot it. I mean, it's like something embedded in us to ask, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I here? What is going on? What is this nut house? Obviously, you're, you know, depending on how young you are, you're not necessarily looking at it as a nut house, but you're looking at it like, what? Why am I here? What is this?
and first started with, I think a lot of us have probably done this. I certainly did it. It's one of my earliest memories. Why am I here? It was like one of my earliest memories. Like, so I look back on it and I say, well, this kid, meaning me, might have been waking up and just looking around, you know, literally when you're coming out of a womb, you know, and going, what is this? What's this going to be about? You know?
Exactly.
And I've seen, I have a granddaughter who, when she was very young, could just barely speak, talked about, do you remember, Mom? She talked to her mother, the school teacher who was the one who lost her husband, and this daughter and her brother, they're grown now. They're in their 20s. But she was a very little girl, and she would say things like, do you see the angels flying around here? And I just thought at that time, I just discarded it. I said, okay, that's just kid talk. And then she would have these conversations saying, Mom, remember when I chose you to be my mother and I chose Dad to be my dad? And my daughter would look at her and say, what are you talking about? She said, remember when we made that decision? She might not use the word decision, but she was a young girl, although she's a very bright girl. But she would say those things. And I look at it now and I go, okay, I get it. You know, people see things that I don't necessarily see, and I see things that other people don't necessarily see. So I get this now. I get that part. You know, I just need to do the best I can do and go along with the plan that's been. I need to be open to what is around me, because if I close myself off, which is, I think, a tendency of a human being, especially a guy like myself. I grew up in a sort of a rough and tumble atmosphere. My mother was married multiple times, and, you know, I lived in the projects, and, you know, it wasn't like I didn't come out of real hard circumstances, but, you know, I had my share of what we would call, I guess today, dysfunctionality. You know, there was plenty of that to go around. And if I just allow myself to be open to the vast nature of God and consciousness and accept that everything is working for me, then I can kind of understand why my youngest daughter, this is not the one I mentioned to you, became extremely agoraphobic, so bad that she couldn't walk out of her house for a year, could not leave the house. And when I look at these things now, I go, was that a lesson for her, or was that for me, for both of us? You know, because I was the guy who would say, get up, get out, knock it off. And, you know, the tough guy thing, that'll get you through anything, right?
You needed maybe more understanding and more empathy.
More compassion.
You and so many others are shown things. You were shown all this history, but you're not allowed to take it back. Why show you if you can't bring it back?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't. It just would be so much easier if we could come back and go, okay, I have the charts here. Look, if we just do this, we'll be over in heaven. It's not going to be that way. That's all I know. That's not how it worked out for me. And even when I listen to other people, it seems like most of them, although not all of them, but I think most of them have had pieces of information deliberately withheld. I know Betty Eady said she did.
Yes, exactly. They do. I mean, we've seen the memory wipe, it openly admitted or vaguely admitted, like through an experiencer's own words, many, many times. Especially when it comes to like the secrets of the universe and blah, 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 the secret to life. It's, you know, I'm going to be honest. It seems like a trolling. It really does. It seems like it's an immense trolling going on. It's like, ha ha, you know, we'll give you the information. Of course, it's Matrix information. We'll give you the information, make you feel like, oh, you have the answers to everything. And then boom, we're going to send you back and you're not going to have access to any of it. None of it. Except, you know, whatever we want you to have access to so you can spread the word through the Matrix marketing department. Thank you. Come again.
I'm not sure about Jeff Olson if he said that. And I do know that when I look at NDEs, this is how we roll in our house. We watch recipes on YouTube, and then, you know, barbecue recipes, and then all of a sudden there'll be an NDE. I'll go, oh, let's click on that one, because of my background and because my wife, she loves it, she understands it, and she embraces it. But I think there's this connection in the NDE world that now exists that, of course, I couldn't feel before, but, you know, people like yourself weren't there. And now that people like you and all these other people, Lilia, there's so many, there's thousands really, that are there, that I can now, without any arrogance, say that we have come to deliver a message. And so by we, I mean people who have had NDEs. And I would also say everyone will have an NDE. It's just a matter of when, you know, and in some cases people have had more than one. I only had the one. And we have come to tell people there is no need to fear. You do go on. There is no death. I think we are so locked up, we being the world, in the idea of birth and death, that if we can move beyond and understand that this is not the end all, it's not an ending at all, it's only a stepping stone, I see that as probably one of the big reasons NDEs are springing to so much prominence. And I do think they've probably been around forever. I think in biblical times when you, somebody said,
I like this
where
point.
did it come from? My life flashed before my eyes from, you know, somebody writing it in 1610.
Exactly.
You go, what was that? Well, they probably had an NDE, what we call an NDE now. And, you know, Amazing Grace, maybe whoever wrote that, maybe that person had an NDE. There's so many possibilities here, but back then.
It's not possibilities, no. It's some of the Bible, man. Whew. You read through some of that, it's either they're having an NDE or they're having an OBE or they're tripping face and going outside and breaking through and having an out-of-body experience. It's there. No doubt about it. And, you know, life flashed before me. It's an excellent point by Wayne.
Then, could you freely talk about that, you know, without getting locked up in an asylum?
True.
Probably not. And now we're on YouTube.
You were told you had a great mission. I imagine that everybody has a mission to accomplish. And I would imagine they're also oftentimes very simple, just as loving who we're with.
Yes. I think somebody once said, it could have been Betty Eady, I use her a lot because I've read her books. She said that one of the moments that showed the purity of my love, I think she had simply knelt down and smelled a flower. And I went, what? Like that was one of the purest moments shown to her of love. And it's funny we're talking about this because years ago, when I wouldn't let my mind accept what I knew to be true, I had one of my grandchildren on my shoulders. You know how you carry the little kids, they're a couple years old on you. And her name was Maya. And there was a moment where she leaned over and smelled my hair. And that was just, on one hand, it was absolutely nothing. it was nothing at all. And yet, on the other hand, it was everything. It was as if we had connected in some eternal way in that moment. And believe it or not, someone took a photograph of that in my family, and it surfaced a couple of years ago. I recently asked, I said, can anyone find this photograph? Because now I'm willing to think about it, where before I was going, just push it off, don't think about it. But I know that was a moment of perfect harmony. You know, just those ones that don't have to have, like you were I'm actually saying what you're saying, that it doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't have to cure cancer or be president of the United States. In fact, it might not even be a good thing.
I mean, yeah, it's any of you had those experiences? Because I have. They're really powerful. And you can't explain them, but you just have this deep, deep connection to somebody or something. And it's just a very intense, formative moment. And like he said, it could be a good thing or a bad thing, but really, really powerful. I'd be curious to hear in the chat or the comment section after the stream if any of you have had experiences like that with somebody you've met or connected with, whether it's friends, family, even pets. I'd love to hear if any of you had those experiences. So please share.
You know, it might be much better to just do some other things.
She obviously wanted to get closer to you, and that was a way to get closer.
Physically connected. And then I'll tell you another strange story. And I don't know who the person was. Oh my God, could it have been Jeff Olson? I think it could have been. I'm not sure. But I sent an NDE to my daughter, my oldest daughter, the one who lost her husband. And she said, did you see the part where he talked about smelling the hair?
That was Jeff.
It was Jeff.
It was so powerful.
This is so weird that this is coming up. Well, this is literally 20 minutes after I put this out, and she doesn't even know that I've asked this question about smelling the hair. She just watched that video. So she's going, you've got to be kidding me. Because these happen all the time now for us, these synchronicity sort of things. They just, you know, they're beyond coincidences at this point. There's just so much going on that I have to accept that there's something at play, something's afoot, you know.
Right. By the way, for those of you listening, we've mentioned Jeff a lot, and I believe it's episodes 9, 10, and 11. And if you haven't watched it, please do it. It is really incredible. Something else I was curious about, Wayne, you saw history. Did it stop at the present, or did you get any kind of a sense of the future?
I don't know, to be honest. I feel like I saw the creation to the end. But it happened so, I mean, you know, centuries were going by in milliseconds, you know, so, and somehow this is so hard to explain to people, and they get aggravated. They go, well, why won't you tell me the history of the world? Because I can't, is the answer. But I could have then. If you'd asked me right there and then, I could have told you. I wouldn't have had to tell you. I would have just looked at you, and you would have gotten the information I got.
I wonder if you went through hypnosis or something like that, if you could ever recall some of that.
I don't know.
Or are you just not meant
I've never really thought about it.
You might not be meant to access it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a whole lot of things I'm not supposed to know.
You might not be meant to ask it. That, again, big question, right? Why? He was meant to be told it when he had the experience. Meant to be told about all these things, but then when he comes back to Earth, all gone, bye-bye. Answers to the universe, gone completely. Come on. It's just like, hey, you know, I like being, I'm not going to say it, but you know, it's just like complacent, just giving yourself away at every step of every turn. It's just like, I feel so bad. It's, you just want to just help so many people see what's going on here. And it's just, you know, Wayne seems like a very good man, right? You know, but it's just so easy to fall into this sensory experience and be addicted to it and think that you need to answer to something outside of yourself when it's absolutely not the case.
You know, because I feel like you say, why didn't they just give me a big book and I could bring it back and go, okay, so if we read this, we can just, this is a whole thing. You know, this existence isn't, I guess on one hand, it's very simple. We just need to accept we're part of creation. But on the other hand, it could be overwhelming to a human mind to even begin to entertain that thought that somehow we're a powerful part of God. But that's exactly what I believe.
Okay, so you know what it just made me think of? One of the lamest excuses I've read, and I'm sure many of you have run across it too, about the memory wipe, is like, oh well, if you had your memories, if you had all your memories of the good times, the bad times, the good lifetimes, the bad lifetimes, well, it would be too much for you. You couldn't handle it. So, because you couldn't handle it, that's why the memory wipe exists. Oh, yeah. Keep telling yourself that because it's the most ridiculous narrative out there and it's pervasive. I mean, if you look at the explanation for the memory wipe in conjunction with reincarnation, that is probably the most talked about narrative out there. Oh, makes sense. Yeah, you get your memory zapped, even though they'll accept the fact that, oh, you need to learn and grow and all that stuff and come down to earth in order to do so. But when it comes to the memory wipe, that eliminates the memories of something that you're supposedly working on and growing from. Oh, well, it's just too much. You can't handle it. See, like if this matrix was smart, and I'm not saying it's not because it certainly is, but if it was smart, what it would do is give you some of those past karmic misdeeds or things that you need to grow and learn, empathy, love, compassion, or maybe you need to be evil, whatever these stupid scenarios are, right? What it would do is it would drop a little bit of that in each lifetime so that, oh, you have a memory of it. Oh, so that's why I'm here. I'm supposed to be working on this. I'm supposed to be working on that. And see, it would be a little bit harder to detect. It'd be a little bit harder to detect. But because the vast majority are, have no memories whatsoever of where they came from, why they're here, where they're going, it makes it very, very easy for this system to thrive. And something I like to also bring up is that there are claims of, like, oh, well, I remember a past life, or I've got information from a past life, or this, that. Yeah, but what do you have? Like a few past lives, maybe you went to some regressions, or maybe you have some pre-birth memories. You have some recollection of your existence before coming here. But in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't hold value to individuals like us who, this is hard data. Like, it's important that we have this information. But I've seen claims. There's a few clowns in the comments section who claim, "Oh, I came here and I have all my memories." Oh yeah, sure, yeah, okay, you have all your memories. Okay, buddy. And then, and then they make all these big claims. So, just as a warning, the comment section sometimes, gets these guru-esque type individuals flaunting their BS. And I'm telling you, they're completely full of it. Be careful. All right. Nobody has their full memories. Nobody has all the answers. And if anyone's claiming they have all the answers, they're completely full of shit. Okay? Anyone who has a sense of decency in their body or in their essence would never, ever make such claims. All right? So please be careful. All right? And, there's clowns saying, oh, I've been home multiple times, but I came back and, I know I was at home. And, again, with this home thing, all right, be careful. Be careful. Keep your eye on the prize. Non-interference, which is shielding, sovereignty, liberation, creating a realm, completely keeping things to a regimen and routine that is not going to be messed with. Keep it simple. Don't let, clowns out there tell you that you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to die at a 45-degree angle, and you got to, freaking click your heels 3 times and say, there's no place like Oz. Okay, come on. Just keep it simple and keep it with your intention as a creator being. Nothing more, nothing less, non-interference. Let's move on. Anyways, I'm kind of ranting a little bit, but just please be careful in the comment section. I'm not going to go through all these comments all the time. And, look, everyone has to make up their own judgment. Everyone comes at this at a certain time, but trust me, they're there. And sometimes I chime in and call them out, and other times I just, can't handle it and I just walk away. But just be careful. This is a non-guru zone. So if you see someone in the comment section acting like a guru, that should be a red flag. I mean, remember, you're your own guru. That's it. You're your own guru. Don't let anyone tell you what you should do or what you have to do or this or that. And that includes my advice. I'm keeping it simple and kind of showing you what I feel is the right way. And it means not interacting with anything related to this matrix. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, I have the answers to the universe. I don't. And I have the answers. Like a big question I get regularly is, oh, well, what do we do when we're, in our own realm and sitting there hanging around? I don't know. I have no clue. All I know is, allow ourselves the quote unquote time to find ourselves, right? To realize our strengths, realize our weaknesses, not fall into like the hustle and bustle of the Matrix or the multiverse outside of here, all this stuff. Just allow yourself some time to connect with who and what you are. That's it. That's all we're trying to achieve. Well, obviously liberation is what we're going to achieve, not try. We're just trying to connect with ourselves at 100%, not 99.9%, not 99.8%, not 2%. We want 100% of ourselves reclaimed so that we can make lucid decisions on what we're going to do, who we are, what we're capable of. And, it's no holds bar. That's it. Anyways, sorry.
And there must be a reason that it's a bit of a mystery, because God could come down and just say, hey, this is how it is. But that's not the case.
Exactly. Right. Because there's that free will thing again. Because he could have just said, listen, I told you this is how it's going to be, like you just said, and you're going to follow the rules. Or else, because there are some people who kind of believe some of this, I will strike you with thunder, But who I met there, those beings, there was no thunder. It was the opposite of thunder. It was warmth, grace, and salvation. It was acceptance.
When you were looking at history, you said it happened very rapidly. Mm-hmm. Did everything that happened to you happen in a row, or did it happen all at once? And what was your sense of time?
It happened slightly in a row, but pretty much all at once. It sounds like an oxymoron, but there was some sort of continuance, but it happened so quickly, and the absorption rate of perfect knowledge and understanding was instantaneous. Now, why can't I know people want me to give it to them. I would. If I had it, I would definitely give it to them. But I guarantee you it was given to me there. I understood it then and there. And somehow I must have understood the reason I was supposed to go back, because, I didn't want to go back. I just had figured it out at an early age, 17, accidentally, for whatever reasons, where I was supposed to be. And I still believe that. There's no doubt in my mind that at least I have to check in there. We'll see what happens after that. I'm not quite sure, you know. I don't know where we quite go from there, and I don't pretend I do. I don't really understand the entire picture. There's no way I could.
Okay, so look, you know, Wayne himself is admitting, I don't have the entire picture. I don't know. There's no way I can. So, you know, that type of reluctancy. And, you know, and I understand Wayne saying what he's saying. I get it. I get it. You know, it's, you know, he's being honest with you. But at the same time, he's saying, you know, everything is as advertised. It's this blind faith, this blind trust in this thing called God, source, creator, whatever the light, on and on and on. That's all. And that's what we're trying to eliminate. All this blind faith, this blind trust of what's being hawked to us, not just here, from the moment we got here as a child, all the way through to death. It's this endless, relentless programming that is being cast down on us, coming at us from all angles. And it's like, you don't know whether you're coming or going, right? And it's just make your own sovereign-based decisions without having to look outside yourself for validation or for some false prophet that, you know, is commonly referred to as God.
You were very young when this happened, but do you have a sense of who you were before and how this changed you?
You know, that's a great question, because in some ways I became very confident, and some of that confidence probably wasn't great, because I don't want to call myself arrogant, but you know, there's that phrase, the ignorant arrogance of youth. And I had a lot of that. Up to then, I'd been very, very insecure. I remember people telling me, you've got to look at me when you talk to me. I wouldn't even look at them. I would look away. And all of that seemed to go away. I became a very confident person, and I achieved what I would say was a lot for the expectation level. I was the first one to go to college. I was, in my family, I was the first one to have what would be called a career, those kind of things. So on an earthly plane, I felt I achieved a lot. And, you know, I became a musician, and that fed something that was very important in my spirit. But yes, it's been a slow progress, or a slow turning, because looking back now, I can see that I was very insecure. Then I became maybe a little too secure, you know. I traveled around the world, you know. I was in the Philippines. We almost got killed there. I was in the military. You know, there were various things that we escaped. I can only think through intervention of God, you know, because there were so many things that should have killed us, my wife and I. And then I ended up in this stage, which I find to be the most fascinating, which is sort of letting go of that egoic person I was. I haven't let go of him completely. He's still there. But I certainly can tell when somebody says something rotten to me, and I think to myself, God bless them. That's not something I was remotely capable of before. But I don't see people attacking me. I think I did. I know I did. I saw everyone attacking me, and I was going to fight back, and all of that receded over time. And was it because of that? It has to be in part because of that. Because if I didn't believe in a God, as I had someone say to me one time, well, you know, I'm going to hedge my bets. These aren't his words, but he said, I'm making a bet that there is a Jesus and a God, and that way, you know, I'll lead a good life. I go, no, you're hedging your bets. I said, for me, I'm all in or I'm all out, because if there is no God, then you should plunder, rape, steal, kill, do everything you want, because there is no God. But if there is a God, then you should do what you think God would expect of you. That's the only way I could look at it. I couldn't be in the middle. I could never be in the middle. This is just my personality. So I had to be all out or all in. That had a lot to do, I think, with the acceptance of Jesus too. I think ultimately I wasn't willing to be 90% sure of Jesus. I had to, and the way I found to do it was just simply, it doesn't really matter to me if his name's Jesus or Joshua or what his name is. It doesn't really matter. That connection, that recognition that we're all part of one thing. So that solves it for me.
That solves it. Just again, blind faith, blind trust in something outside of yourself. That, hey, everything is as advertised. No need to ask questions. You know, if it's, you know, you're just presenting yourself as Jesus. All right. Okay. You know, who am I to ask questions?
What is the,
You know, again, no offense to Wayne. You know, I think he's a great guy and means well. It just is, you know, this blind faith thing, this blind trust is just, it's to the detriment of our own sovereignty.
All part of one thing. So that solves it for me.
what is the most important thing that you learned
As a result of being there?
as a result of being there or evolving?
Well, really, it's the same answer, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah, it's when my soul did cartwheels in the air, and I understood that the myriad of complexities I had created up to the age of 17 as to why I existed melted away to one thing, and that's love. And the love that was expressed is very hard to talk about here because we mentioned this, the symbol of a symbol, and no one really gets what you're saying. I can't relate that love. I'm trying to, because this is my mission now, is to be part of what was shown to me. And it was such a simple answer. I mean, I just can't even explain. And it was like I wanted to slap myself in the face and go, oh, that's all it really is. It's not complicated. We complicate everything. You know, we build all these empires and mazes all around us. We do that as people, as mankind. But the real answer has nothing to do with any of that. You know, it's really just do unto others as you would do unto yourself, and it's all going to be solved just that easily.
When you were flipping in the air, you said earlier something that I love because it doesn't always come across in these videos because we're talking about serious things, but I love to laugh and I love to be around funny people. And you said that God has a sense of humor.
Yes, and if you think about it, if you believe in God, if you think about it, of course he has to, or it has to, because how else could we have it? And so the enjoyment and joy and humor is infinitely there. I mean, he wasn't laughing at me. I could feel his joy. I could feel that connection. You know, he was overjoyed that I was overjoyed, and he was laughing like you would laugh at a little baby going, oh, they're trying to do this or trying to do that. It's going to take a while, but they're going to figure it out. And they just got the greatest treat they could get, which was to find out the meaning of life.
This is again painting humanity as like, oh, you're just a little minion. You're nothing. You know, you're shit on my shoe, right? Oh, you're just a little baby. You're a baby turd, you know, and maybe you'll grow up to be a big turd. But as long as you're following, you know, my plan and doing as you're told, you know, everything's hunky dory. It's incredible. Like there's just this endless like reliance on faith that everything is advertised. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's incredible. It really is, and it's so easy to see, like how easily we're bamboozled throughout this process.
What is our biggest misconception as a society?
That you have to answer to something.
That we are human, that we live and die. And because of that, we think we have to take from others in order to gain for ourselves. Because it's true, if we live and die and there's nothing else, then we really should build fortresses and castles and keep everyone out and keep all of the goods to ourselves. But the fact is, if you don't live and die, and if you find out, if you can awaken to the fact that what you do for everyone else, you do infinitely for yourself, you will be rewarded over and over again. And again, I would just like to.
How? By reincarnating? By thinking, by being dragged along in this dumpster fire?
For yourself, you will be rewarded over and over again. And again, I would just like to point out, I'm just beginning to understand this. This isn't something I'm deeply entrenched in. I feel like I'm just awakening to these thoughts that I feel like I've been a withholder my whole life. I really have, emotionally and in other ways. You know, this is mine. I don't want anyone to have it. I'm going to keep it here. I'll keep it for my family. But I'm letting go of those things because some people say Satan. That's fine. I have no problem with their beliefs. I'll call it the ego. I think the ego is man-made, and I think the ego is what we're using for the most part in order to construct our reality around ourselves. I think the ego has constructed this reality, and the ego isn't a thing, as I think of it. It's just a thought system. It's a system you buy into. So you either buy into the idea that you are material and part of the ego and you turn to dust and die, or you buy into what Sting said years ago, we are spirits living in the material world. And that's how I see it.
Okay, so, you know, ego is an interesting one, right? Because as you can see in the title and what we talked about earlier, how the hundreds of thousands of beings, you know, sang this song in unison in perfect harmony just for him in an effort to get him back here, right? So they were clearly stroking his ego on the other side, just like what happens as a human being, but on like a insane scale, like crazy scale. So kind of like what my gut tells me is that, you know, there are these etheric overlays that exist. Okay. Now, just to kind of put this out there, you know, I don't have any like opinion, like any strong opinion, I guess you can say, about like, you know, removing the chakras and all that stuff. The way I see it is you know, it should be something to probably stay away from. But that's just my gut. At the same time, I'm not going to sit here and tell anyone what to do, but I think we have like these etheric overlays, and I think the chakra system is likely part of that. Now, for some, maybe it helps them, getting them, you know, quote unquote, removed, you know, if that's even a thing. I mean, I've heard mixed feedback on that, and it's something I'm not going to try, so I don't know. But the reason why I'm talking about this is, you know, with these etheric overlays, which I feel do kind of contribute to the human experience and are likely part of the chakra system. I think those things, until you actually die, are not going anywhere. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not going to pretend like I have the answer because I've never done it, nor do I plan to. But I think these overlays are part of the matrix system. They're inorganic. They're not part of our essence. And until you kick the bucket, you know, you're most likely going to have them, or until you use your intention to, you know, remember, shielding. You know, none of this stuff is simply allowed to exist in any part of you, right? And that includes etheric overlays, whether they're chakras, whatever you want to call them, right? They're just simply not allowed to exist. And you as a creator being can influence that and make it so. Now, Wayne here had an experience with the hundreds of thousands of beings targeting his ego right at the core, making him feel special. Christ, he was even getting teary-eyed when he talked about it, right? I got teary-eyed a few times during this, for other reasons. If they can play on your ego, if they could play on the whole love and light narrative, they're going to do it. Why wouldn't they? As long as mission accomplished, they're able to keep you within the system. They don't care about anything else but that. That's number one. So without it, they're dust, but the only way to get there is to find yourself along the way and realize your true power without allowing this outside interference to take control of you, this faith-based system.
That makes so much sense. Wayne, you mentioned that you were a musician. Can people find your music somewhere?
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm on Spotify. There's an album there called The Finish Line, and there's various things on YouTube. I'm no longer a practicing musician. I just do it for fun and the occasional gathering down here where I live in Florida now. But there's some stuff out there, and you can look for The Finish Line, Wayne Morrison. That'll pop up, and it's probably on Pandora too. I don't know. There's different. I know it's on Spotify because I've seen it there.
I listened to it and I enjoyed it. I found it on YouTube.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Oh,
yes.
good. Yeah.
Yes, very nice.
And that's the kind of music I play. And, Lee Whitting asked me a question that I inaccurately answered when I think back on it. He said, well, did you ever write a song about your experience? I said, no, I didn't. But there is a song on there called Looking East that when I look at it in the years since I wrote it, it clearly came from the unconscious and has a lot to do with that experience indirectly. Like I say things like, what in the hell did I even come here for? I say things like that, and standing between providence and eternity. So I do think Looking East on that album does kind of point to that experience I had.
I'm going to take a listen to that, Looking East. Thank you.
Looking East, yeah.
Looking East. Do you have any parting words for the people that are listening to us?
Yeah, I don't, but I'll make some up. I just want everyone to know that they are free from the fear of death. I understand if you're afraid, and I'm even willing to say, and probably it will happen to me when those around me die and I die, face my death, if it should happen that way, I will have human fear. But I just want them to understand that those of us who have had NDEs and come and give this information don't do it, for the most part, as far as I know, for any ego gratification or for any monetary reward. We
Betty E sure does, who you brought up earlier.
Just want everyone to relax and understand you can give up all those crazy thoughts that you have to be tied to this existence. You can do a good job while you're here, do the best you can do, and it's going to vary for all of us, physically, spiritually, and mentally, but we're not tied to the human frame. We are not this. We are something far grander.
We are spirits living in a human body.
That we are. So I think we will kind of leave things off. We will leave things off there. It's been a lot of fun. I just want to drop you a reminder that we will be heading on over to the Truth in Gaming channel in about maybe 10-15 minutes. And YouTube should take you there. For those watching on Odyssey, you can either watch on Rumble or YouTube. Unfortunately, I don't have it set up on Odyssey yet, but feel free to join. Actually, I don't think I can with the settings that I have, because I've been streaming in 1440p 60 frames per second HDR, so it's like the top quality that you can provide on YouTube. And I'm trying it for the first time on Odyssey. I'm not sure if it's going to work. I hope it does. But I have to create the stream on I'm sorry, I'm trying it for the first time on Rumble tonight, not Odyssey, if I just said Odyssey. And so feel free to join us. It's a reincarnation game. It's called I'm sorry, I lost my place here for a minute. Okay, it's The Wild Eternal. Can you escape reincarnation? And part 1 was wild, to say the least. So feel free to join us there. And just as a reminder, there is a backup channel here for YouTube. And I also have the channel on Odyssey and Rumble. And there's the Truth in Gaming channel on Rumble. There is the Laughing at the Clown World Matrix Rumble account as well. That please consider subscribing there. We'll probably start some live streams up there in the next week or two. And it's just going to be a chill, fun experience. Just kicking back, having a good time, and laughing at some crazy shit going on out there in the Matrix. And I mean, I got some real doozies that we'll have some fun. So, it's just a way to get away from the soul trap stuff a little bit here and there and just enjoy ourselves, right? So feel free to join me over on Rumble for that. And I really look forward to doing that show. And I may have some co-hosts along the way, and we may even do some panels, with co-commentary and stuff. I got some ideas brewing in my head for that channel. So it'd be really cool to have some of you there. I'm going to drop those links in there one more time before we close things out. I also have a Twitter and an Instagram, as well as Facebook. And most of those are for notifications. If you'd like to get notifications about when the channel's live and all that stuff. I meant to say this at the beginning of the video, and I apologize, but the source video for tonight's NDE was Beyond with Heather Tesch. That's Beyond with Heather Tesch, Tesch. So I'd like to thank Heather for providing that interview for us to go over. And I think there's one more thing. Let me just, the monthly members live stream for this month for Last Timers Club stream level members and higher will be on Sunday, July 30th, around 7 to 7:30 p.m. That's going to be a week from today. So I got a good one for you, and I should have information coming to you soon. Also, like I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, don't forget to check out Sovereign Spirits, which is Wayne and Julie's channel, Wayne Bush and Julie's channel. They're putting out some great information, and you don't want to miss it. And Wayne and Julie may be coming on sometime in the near future. I'm not sure. I spoke with Wayne on the phone about a month or 6 weeks ago, but my life's been crazy, and I've been meaning to make an independent video to kind of let people know that Wayne's on YouTube now. So don't forget to check him and Julie out. And of course, Dan at Overwatch Project and Overwatch channel here on YouTube, and overwatchproject.com. Wayne's website, trickedbythelight.com. So, yeah, that's it. So we'll be headed on over to the Truth in Gaming channel on YouTube, and as long as the Matrix is willing, hopefully Rumble as well. So we should be starting in about 15 minutes. It's 8:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so give me about 15 minutes. Maybe 8:35 we'll get started. I just need a few minutes. Gotta take care of the doggos and get the stream created over on Rumble. But the YouTube stream is already up and ready and waiting, so you should be sent there right about now. Thank you.